13.
O'clock.
And in the camera shot.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? We're arguing about we're not arguing
Is
about
that-
who
yeah, okay.
who moved the
Okay, yeah.
the bike.
Yeah, and you can see everything here, huh? What's different?
Nothing.
It's not in between us.
It usually isn't because my chair is usually blocking it.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
I remember seeing that shit
You
all the
worry
time.
too much about it.
Yeah, all right.
Maybe I'm not far enough over, but I don't
Yeah,
want to
that's
run.
what-
I don't want to run into my shit over here. That's why.
Yeah, you just want to hog the center of the damn thing.
Yeah, that's it. I
That's
just want
how it
to. I
is.
just want to be the center of attention.
Yeah,
Hey,
you're
look
trying
at
to-
me!
yeah,
Look at
trying to
me!
do that.
Not really.
Well,
Yeah.
look, I got Dennis in there.
Yeah, Dennis is in there.
Dennis is my thing. Okay. All right, we can start the show. Yeah, that was the... No, this is what it was. That's why.
That's always there.
Yeah, I take it off every show.
No, you don't.
Or almost every show. Whenever I
No.
see that shit. Whenever it's blocking anything. I'm
One time you took it off.
like, yeah.
And then I was like, when I look for it, because I get cold in here, and I was like, where the fuck is it? And I was like, oh, you put it over there. You know what I mean?
Speaking of, I should turn that fan on.
I mean, I don't know. Is it? I'm comfortable,
I'm
but
fucking hot.
if you want to, you can. But I'll
I'm
be
hot
free.
when
I'll
the
be
fan
free.
is
I'll be
on. I'm
freezing
hot
my
just
ass
walking around
off.
this motherfucker.
I'll be freezing my ass off. But
Okay. You're not gonna be freezing.
yeah, I will. It's
Okay, we want to turn it back off?
No, it's fine. Just
All
leave
right.
it.
Not gonna be freezing.
I'll just be cold. That's fine.
It's not cold. It's almost the summer.
That doesn't matter. It's cold in here. We're not sitting outside.
It's fucking hot in here. I don't know where
It's
you're
really.
getting
It's
that.
not. It's always cold in here.
It's hot.
Like pretty much always.
Okay.
That's why I have like little jackets and stuff hanging on the back. Because even in the summer,
Girls are always
in here.
cold.
Well, it's like, what do you
Always
want me?
cold.
What do you want me to do about it?
I don't understand.
You know what I mean?
It's fucking Florida.
Temperature is subjective.
70 degrees in here. She says it's cold.
Yeah, it's well, it feels cold to me. In this room, like the bedroom feels hot to me. That's why I have the fan blowing on me all the time. But in here, it's like freezing cold, like pretty much all the
And I'll
time.
make sure that bedroom is hot all the time.
Yes. You're so silly.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, so this piece of shit here. I mean, okay, so all the serial killers we cover obviously are pieces of shit, but I don't know. This dude is really a piece of shit.
I don't remember this one.
Yeah, as CB mentioned, this is a Scottish serial killer, probably one of the best known ones. I kind of feel like Scotland is kind of known for this motherfucker, like Angus Sinclair, and who's the other one? Robert Black. I feel like he's the other one that's kind of famous from there. So that's like the trifecta of shitheads from Scotland. And this guy, the thing that's interesting about him is that he got convicted of 3 murders. However, they're almost certain that he committed more than that. They just haven't been able to prove it yet. He's dead now, and he wouldn't admit to any other ones because he's an asshole like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll talk about some of the possible ones that he committed at the end. There are 2 for sure that I'm pretty sure were like... And most of the detectives were like, we're 95% sure this was him, but we couldn't prove it, and now he's dead, so, you know what I mean? But there were some other ones they thought maybe were him. And we'll get into the thing, too, because for a while, they were investigating the possibility that he might have been the still unidentified serial killer, Bible John, who we did a show about a long time ago. I'm going to say right up front, I don't think that he was Bible John, but I can totally see why, because there are some similarities. I can totally see why they would have investigated him for that, but I don't think he is. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt it. But we'll get into that like a little bit later on. We'll do like a refresh, because like I said, we did a show on Bible John, but it was like a long, long time ago, and they still don't know who that fucker is. So he's kind of like fucking... He also killed 3 women that they know of.
Why'd they call him Bible John?
Because a cab driver that picked him and his next potential victim up said that he just kept like spouting Bible quotes and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I think some people that knew him like said that he did that all the time too. So they that's what they ended up calling him. But yeah, and remember I said like a long time ago that the fucking painting that they did of him, like the identikit as they would call it, but it looked like an actual painting. Kind of looked like my ex-husband, but it wasn't him though. Because the Bible John murders happened like in the late 1960s.
Yeah,
like
so
when he was a baby.
Yeah.
So so it's like, unless a baby was a serial killer, I'm pretty sure it wasn't him. But it did kind of look like him. He had red hair and everything.
They made a movie about that already. A baby being a serial killer.
Yeah.
It's alive.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a great fucking movie.
Kind of like a serial killer. I think it was more like a mutant. I haven't seen that movie forever.
It's so fun. I love it.
We gotta see that bitch again.
We should do like a marathon and watch like, how many of them were there? 3? I know there was a second
3?
one.
I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
There might be a third.
I'd watch them. I've only seen the first one.
The first one's really good. I really like the first
Saw it when I was a
Life
kid.
movie. Yeah, it's like there's something really entertaining about it. I think. Papa77 said, when Jenny's nips get hard, turn off the fan.
Yeah. No, I turn it on. That's when the super chats start rolling in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's when the super chats.
I have a bra and you won't be able to see that.
Let me see. Bend up. Stand straight.
No, it's fine.
You can't
It's
see
fine.
him?
It's
okay,
fine.
Can't see? Okay.
Can't see. Like I said, I got a bra and you won't be able to see it.
All right.
Here,
let's get...
Pimping me out.
What's that?
Pimping me out.
I just know how to make money.
For super
I
chats.
know how to make money.
He's pimping me out for super chats. Oh my god. All right. So, do we have anything that we need to address before we get into this shit show that is this motherfucker?
No, I say it's good. Why does it look crooked?
I don't know, Tom.
See what I'm talking about?
Maybe your head's crooked.
Let me see.
Maybe your eyeballs are crooked.
It looks crooked to me.
Well, quit. I haven't touched it. I don't really know, like, why. I haven't touched anything.
I was talking about the line above us with the where the
But I haven't touched anything.
Okay, I fixed it. The camera angle was wrong.
Okay. I'm just saying I haven't touched it.
It was showing the ceiling. I don't think we ever usually show the ceiling.
I don't know. I never really
noticed.
noticed.
That's about correct right there.
Okay.
That way it's just not fucking shooting our chin from the chin up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cutting off the top of my head a little bit.
Cut your boobs out of frame, too. It was.
Well, no, and I said now it's cutting the top of my head off.
That's okay.
That's okay. Nobody's here to see the top of your head.
No, that's good. No, it still looks good. I'm worried about. See, I'm trying to help produce this shit, but I'm just worried about this line up here.
I got you.
See what I'm talking about?
I got you.
I didn't want anything showing there because that wasn't right because it's crooked, and it makes it crazy if I see something that's not crooked. Super chat.
Thank you very much, Bob. Said nips. LOL.
Yeah. See. Gonna get a couple bucks for that.
See, Tom.
Gonna get a couple bucks for that.
Even though you couldn't really see, he couldn't see anything.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
$5 US.
$5
US. A Lincoln.
Yes. CB said one of the cops said he thought Peter Tobin had a fetish for teenage girls. Oh, I agree. It did seem like he went after teenagers, 15, 16, 17, 18. Even the women that he married, this bitch married 3 times. Now, one of his wives was, like, age appropriate. Actually, she was, like, a little bit older than him at the time. But the other ones, he got them when they were still teenagers. For obvious reasons. The reasons a lot of predators, like, go after much, much younger girlfriends.
It's common in a lot of cultures, I'll tell you, man. Japan's big into the teenagers. I've always seen it as a sign of weakness, you know what I mean? Fucking, it's guys trying to get the weakest, most vulnerable. Yeah, they're cute.
Yeah, that's exactly what
they're cute, but they're not.
They want somebody they can
Sexually,
mold into what they want, and like doesn't have their shit together yet.
Yeah, they
haven't figured themselves out yet.
Shit.
Yeah, and so it's like they can like lord it. It's like a power move.
Yeah, so then they can tell them what to do.
Right.
I'll teach you all this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that kind of shit.
So gross.
That's the dude that can't handle the kind of women I like. I like women fucking implants who did times on a stage stripping, fucking anything like that. I like the bad girls because they were more reasonable.
He likes women with
a
past or experience or that had their shit together.
Ones that were competent.
Yeah, and kind of
ones that liked men, knew about men, that kind of shit.
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
But
you know the deal.
Yeah, exactly.
You were one of them.
Yeah. I wasn't a stripper at any point.
No, not when we met.
No, not when we met.
Oh shit, we've done video.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Not exactly stripping, but you know what I mean. Same kind of thing.
But we're working stream, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the same, just in your house.
In your house.
Yeah. It's funny, we started stream mate and I thought I was just gonna be fucking sitting there and people were like, man, get that dude off the screen and shit like that. No, motherfuckers are coming after me.
Yeah.
That's like, whoa, all right.
Well, like I said,
I guess this is the game. I guess I didn't think I was going to be included in this.
Well, like I said, if you're in the couples area, you're going to get people that are into that because that's what they're looking for.
Ask me how much I weigh, shit like that. Fucking women, they knew all about fucking.
It's gonna get people that were like
testosterone
into both of it.
Yeah, fitness dudes and shit. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We did get a lot of fitness dudes.
Fitness dudes, yeah. English ones.
Yeah, we got a lot of British people too.
A lot of British guys. Yeah.
And like I said, I think I've said this before, but they were easily the most polite.
Best customers, yeah.
By a long stretch. Yep. Most of the Americans were either... Some of them were okay.
They're okay.
But most of them were very brusque.
Yeah.
Or some of them were kind of rude. But the British people were polite to a fault.
British guys will tell you some shit like, I'm at work right now.
That was so awesome.
I'm trying to look for some fun, man. I'm going crazy.
He's like in his office.
I need to rub one out. They're not going to walk in on you. No, they're not going to walk in. I run this place.
Yeah, because we were making sure. We were like, you're not going to get caught.
He was the boss.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, CB said, can I just say as a member of the fetish community, fuck Peter Tobin? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, just fuck him all around. I mean, don't fuck him, seriously. Well, especially don't fuck him now because he's dead.
Yeah.
But, don't fuck him before. Not that I'm blaming the women that married him because I've seen interviews with at least 2 of his ex-wives, and they told the same story that he was, like many psychopaths, very, very charming at first. He was super nice. He was super loving. He would like do all this nice stuff for them, and they had no idea. And then like after he got you on the hook, then he turns into this violent, arrogant, fucking asshole.
Okay.
He starts beating and raping and all this other kind of shit. And so they were kind of blindsided. And like I said, 2 of them at least were much younger than he was. Not much younger. The first one was like 5 years younger, and then at one point he got one that was like 20 years younger. But they all said that he didn't seem like that at all at the beginning. So that's why I get like upset when people are just kind of like, well, you should have known something was off or something like that. Sometimes you don't. Like sometimes dudes, especially like I said, psychopaths are really good at pretending to be normal, nice people, and then wait until you're kind of hooked into it and you can't leave for whatever reason because you have kids or something like that, and then their mask comes off. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And that seems to be what happened to these women. So it's a pretty fucked up kind of story. So like I said, this dude, he committed 3 murders that they know of. That's what he was convicted of. He ended up getting a whole life sentence where, they're like, yeah, you're never getting out. And he died in prison in 2022. But as I said, after his 3rd murder, the one that they caught him on, they suspected that because the murders that he had committed had happened when he was relatively old for a serial killer. Like the first 2 that he did were when he was in his like mid-40s. And then the 3rd one was like when he was 60.
That's weird.
So they were kind of like, there's no way this bitch has not committed like a bunch of other crimes like prior to this. So they did something called Operation Anagram like in 2006 where they started tracing his movements throughout the years, like trying to figure out where he was and if there was like any other crimes like that like in the cities he was living in, because that's the thing about him was that he was real nomadic. Like he would move like just all around Scotland and England, but he would just move all around. He used like a bunch of different aliases, like he was always like changing cars, all this other kind of stuff. And this was like in the 70s and 80s, like when you could kind of get away with that, like because they didn't really have much, you didn't leave much of a paper trail. So he got away with shit for a long time.
Yeah, creating new identities. It means he's running from something, trying to clean his hands or something.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, because usually a serial killer kills around puberty,
Yeah, they usually start really young.
Teenagers, yeah.
Most of them. That's why they thought it was fishy that the first murders that they know he committed were when he was, I believe he was like 44 or something like that, or 40. I'm trying to think. He was born.
Unlikely.
He was born in 1946, and the first murders that they know of that he did were 1991. You know what I mean?
It's just no.
So yeah, that's what they were thinking. That's why they started like looking at all of this other stuff.
Yeah. In case you guys aren't regular listeners, I've done a lot of study on it. Read a bunch of FBI profiling fucking books on it years back in the 90s and shit. A serial killer that's a sexual identity. It's a sexual. It's like being straight or gay. They can't get it out of them. It's part of them. And usually it kicks in around puberty. They have to kill shit. And they have different different ways of doing it. They usually like animals first. They'll start off with little animals, not all the time, but usually little animals or playing with dead things. They get and they'll get off into that, and eventually in their teenage years they'll kill a human. And it's just across the board. Sometimes it's a 16-year-old girl killing a 16-year-old boy killing a fucking 25-year-old woman that lives next door to him, or a 30-year-old woman. That's happened.
Or sometimes it's killing a younger kid.
Sometimes
too.
it's killing a little kid, and getting away with that. Depends on what that guy's fantasizing about.
Yeah. So that's what I said. So it's very, very unusual for some motherfucker. I mean, and he had done fucked up shit that they know of, because he spent some time in prison, like even before they caught him, like for the murders. But it was mostly, I don't know what I'm saying, it was mostly, but a lot of it was kind of petty shit. But he was unaccounted for a lot of time periods in there. So I kind of feel like he must have committed more
this
murders.
this thing about committing your first one in your 40s, nah.
Yeah, nobody really wakes up when they're 45 or something like that. It's be like, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. I'm just going to be a serial killer.
Yeah, it's a sexual orientation. It's part of their sex drive. It's violence.
And this guy, honestly, he seemed like kind of a little bit of a bad seed from the beginning. He didn't have like a weird, like horrific upbringing. Because remember, like the last dude we talked about, that Bobby, whatever the fuck his name was, Bobby Joe Long, like who had kind of a weird upbringing, like sleeping with his mom, and he had like that XXY syndrome, and everybody was like making fun of him because he had man tits and all this other kind of stuff, and him getting bullied. This guy, it seemed like for the time period, he got beat on and stuff like that, but it wasn't that unusual for the time. You know what I mean? It didn't seem egregious. So I kind of feel like he was just kind of a shithead from the beginning, maybe. I don't know.
Something about early childhood development, genetics.
Yeah.
Brain chemistry. Some of them have multiple head injuries.
Yeah, this guy didn't. Well, remember when we talked about Bobby J. Long, like last week or the week before, whenever it was, that dude was like the king of head injuries. He had, what, like 5 of them?
Yeah, the head injuries, what happens with that is that head injuries have a tendency to give you actually kind of fucking lessen your inhibitions.
Yeah.
So if you have predilections of being like a sadistic, a sexual sadist, you won't be able to hold them back.
Yeah, it's gonna take off the guardrails.
Yeah, it's gonna take you off the rails.
That was keeping you from doing that shit in real life.
Right. Because for every one guy that becomes a serial killer, or let's just say for every one guy that kills somebody and gets caught or doesn't get caught, there's got to be a fucking 20 or 30 other guys that just think about it.
Yeah.
They'd probably never do it.
I would hope
so. Yeah, and it's because they have, some kind of guardrails for keeping them from doing it. Maybe they outgrow it.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot of serial killers sometimes will outgrow being a serial killer, but as soon as they start getting into their 40s, the sex drive, their testosterone levels are fucking trailing off, so their sex drive doesn't really compel them to do it. They lose interest.
Yeah, they don't have the burning need to do it anymore like they did when they were younger.
Yeah, and I don't think it fucking scratches the itch like it was. So the itch isn't there anymore. It's just, they probably look at it and go like, wonder why I did that. What did I see in that?
Or maybe some of them look back on it fondly. I don't really know. I'm not a serial killer, so I don't know how their fucking brains work.
BTK was looking back on it like it was the good old days. And
that's what I mean.
I don't think he could do it anymore.
Yeah.
And started talking to the cops again, reminiscing. And he was trying to recapture.
Like, remember when everyone was terrified of me? That was so awesome.
He was trying to recapture
who I was.
He was trying to recapture his mojo.
Yeah.
I think.
And that's how his dumbass got
And the shit
caught,
went bad, yeah.
I kind of feel like if he hadn't... I mean, they might have caught him eventually, but it would have taken a lot longer to catch him if he hadn't decided, hey, I need attention again. And I'm going to start, like, fucking writing to the cops. Because he was just fading into obscurity, and I guess he didn't like it.
I think his sex drive wasn't there, so he wasn't compelled to do it. But he kind of wished he was that guy.
Yeah, because I'm sure the fantasies were still there. Yeah. It's just like he probably couldn't. Enough.
So I think maybe in BTK's case, I think the fantasy shifted away from the victim and more about himself.
Yeah.
Of like how awesome he was.
Yeah, like I need to protect my legacy or whatever the fuck.
Right.
I mean, I've read like a bunch of his letters and stuff, and I think that that's exactly how he would think of it, as his legacy.
Yeah, protect his legacy. You got to teach people about the Minotaur.
Yeah.
And what else did he have?
That's how he thought of himself.
Yeah, he was a Minotaur.
Which I'm like, okay, bro.
Big old bull. He was full of bull, all right.
Yeah, full of something.
Didn't never take any pictures of. He made all them selfies of him in the fucking women's underwear, but never took any pictures of his dick, from what I could find.
Wonder why that could be.
Yeah, why is that? If you're a Minotaur, you better be built like a fucking bull, right?
Yeah, if you're going around telling people that, or thinking of yourself like that.
Isn't that what you're talking about? Or he's going to say, no, just spiritually.
He's a spiritually.
Just spiritually like a bull. Okay. All right.
Not physically. Don't check.
Yeah. Let's try that. Yeah. Physically more like a chipmunk, but.
Probably. I wonder if they let Dennis watch YouTube.
Dennis is locked up. He's in penitentiary.
I don't think they let him watch YouTube.
Yeah, that Tom guy, he thinks he's funny. It's not funny.
I'm not hung like a chipmunk. Shut up. You are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's probably what he's thinking.
He would have been my first male victim.
Oh shit, man. Yeah. No, he wouldn't have been, because he killed that dude. Didn't he kill that dude with like in the family?
I don't remember. He killed him.
I think the first.
Oh yeah,
his first kills were a family. It was like a husband, wife,
he shot
and a little girl.
Husband,
Yeah. So he killed dudes too.
If they were in the way.
If they were in the way.
He didn't molest them though.
No. Like I said, they were just an obstacle.
Yeah.
They were just an obstacle. But yeah, this dude, he seems like your classic psychopathic. I mean, he really seemed to enjoy inflicting pain on women. Like, he really, really seemed to hate women a lot. And I don't really know why. The asshole we talked about last time, he did too, but I could, I'm not justifying it. It's like I could just kind of see it. I could kind of see where that came from, like because of his relationship with his mom and stuff. But this guy, I don't really know where this came from. It might have just been kind of...
Were they worse than the toolbox murderers? Was he worse than them?
Probably not,
yeah,
but...
I think those were the worst.
Yeah.
I think those guys were the worst.
Did we do a show about them?
I think we did a show.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember wanting to. I just don't remember if we ever did. Because we've covered... Well, yeah.
They just fucking beating teenage girls in the fucking elbow with hammers and, just till the shit was just fragments and...
Yeah, there's a certain type of dude that just really enjoys inflicting pain and
pulling
fear.
nipples off with pliers and shit.
Yeah, like shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this motherfucker didn't do that, but that's not better. He's still like fucking doing the shit, but it's just like
when you see the fucking toolbox murders, they're just fucking losers.
Well, yeah.
Doing this to fucking innocent young kids, mostly, a lot of them, and that were just like walking to Sunday school. Fucking whole life ahead of them. And just these losers pile out of a damn van, put you in a mobile rape van.
Yeah, it's fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
And like I said, you don't know when they're gonna fucking strike.
Yeah. And they made recordings of fucking.
I remember that because I think I listened to some of them when I was researching that show.
One girl's like 16, and she's like, "Just kill me, just get it over with."
That's enough internet for today.
Yeah, and when the victim just kill me, just kill me, get it over with.
Which shit, man.
Yeah.
I don't blame her.
Yeah.
You can only put up with so much of that shit. I mean, fuck, man.
Shit makes me mad.
Yeah, well, it should make everybody mad. It makes me mad too. Like I said, and I read about this all the time because I write about true crime like all the time, and so I'm like reading true crime shit like pretty much every day. It does like kind of diminish your faith in humanity after a while. Yeah. But you have to keep a level head about it too. You have to think, most people are not like this. This is unusual. That's why we're talking about it. All this other kind of stuff. But it is scary to know that these motherfuckers are out there and you don't know which ones they are.
If y'all are new to the show, I'm ex-military. Fucking, I was in the 101st Airborne Division. I'm ex-infantry. Fucking recon scout. Fucking had my fucking squad leaders were fucking ex-Contras at one point. Fucking Army Rangers and. Did fucking several deployments. I got no problem with killing people, but there's always fucking something in to serve some kind of a goal in a mission. It's a statement. This thing about just doing it because to fulfill some sexual desire. Man, no, that's fucking.
I mean, if that's
twisted.
The only way you could get your rocks off,
yeah, you're all fucking.
Because here's the thing. I think, according to Peter Tobin's, at least one of his wives, actually maybe all of them. they said the same thing, that he couldn't get aroused unless he was inflicting violence on them.
Yeah, sexual sadist.
Like that's how he got off on it.
Yeah,
he was sexual sadist.
And to get off on doing it to an innocent person who's helpless, that just boggles the mind. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos of fucking soldiers doing battlefield executions on people, cartel people cutting girls' arms off. But that girl was an assassin, the one video that I saw. So they were just getting revenge on her. I can understand it. You know, these are groups that are at war with one another. They hate one another. But they're all players in the game, you know. This is just an innocent person. And you're
it's just
trying
somebody
to
you snatched off the side of the road.
and you're doing
or
this
something.
just for your own fucking gratification. No, you gotta die. You gotta die. If I fucking catch you doing that shit, you're gonna die the same way that person died. I'm gonna do whatever you did to that girl, I'm gonna do it to you. It makes me mad. It makes me fucking bloodthirsty. I can't understand it. Because there's no fucking... There's no court of law or any justice that can fucking serve that back. My kamikaze ass is like, we're gonna do this to you. You know? Gotta get medieval. Yeah.
Oh, Papa said the room is now cooled off because your nips are hard.
Is that what it is? My nips are hard?
Yeah.
Oh, they're just always hard. That shit's just...
I thought he was going to go like that.
That's it's just pure hormones doing that, man. It's not temperature.
Okay.
It'd be 100 degrees in here. My nipples be hard.
You're so filthy, Tom.
Yeah.
I love it. James Knapp just arrived. Hey, James, how you doing? Do you think he's Bible John? Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. We'll kind of get into it more like toward the end of the show. I personally do not think that he's Bible John, but it's possible, but I think the possibility is maybe like 20%. I think it's probably like 80% he's not Bible John. You know what I mean? Just, I think, because there's a couple things that are similar, but then there's a bunch of things that I think kind of count him out. And honestly, like the detectives, because they did investigate him through Operation Anagram as being Bible John, and they actually ruled him out for various reasons, which we'll get into.
I'm going to make you another drink.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, CB said a lot of serial killers want to fuck their mom, but at the same time, a lot of teenage boys with a fetish want to do their fetish with their mom. Yeah, I'm not a boy, so I couldn't speak to that, but maybe that's a pretty common thing. Yeah, and Tammy said maybe BTK, I guess she's saying BTK stopped because he couldn't squeeze into the bra and panties anymore. How funny. Somebody needs to draw like a little cartoon of like little sad Dennis Rader. Like, he's like, I'm gonna be a badass Minotaur again, and I'm gonna get back into serial killing. And then like he goes in his little closet or the attic where he has all his serial killer stuff, and he goes in there and takes out all his lingerie and stuff, and he tries to put it on, and he's like, wah, wah, like he can't get into it. And then he's all fucking sad. That would be fucking hilarious if somebody can do like fucking... Because I'm a big advocate of serial killers. A lot of them kind of get off on scaring people. They get off on how much terror they engender and things like that. It's like, that's why they love getting these big scary nicknames, and that's why I think it's good that a lot of media now are just like, yeah, we're not giving them scary nicknames anymore, because they love that. So let's not like give them what they want, like all this attention. So I kind of feel like it's better just to ridicule them, because they seem to fucking hate that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of them really are kind of arrogant and think too much of themselves, particularly BTK. There was something about him where he just thought he was better than everybody and superior and everything. And whenever I encounter somebody like that, my first instinct is just to like chip away at their fucking, you know what I mean? Just like bring them down pegs and pegs. That's like my first instinct to do with that. Because I'm like, get the fuck over yourself, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Because I can't stand that. So yeah. So yeah, we did do toolbox killers. I thought we had. I remember that was a fucking horrifying case. Didn't they were the ones that had that fucking... The toolbox killers was the one that had the semi with the whole mobile torture chamber in it, wasn't it? Was that them, or was that those other motherfuckers?
That was the guy living out in the desert. I think
that's right. Yeah. There's so many.
The guy that had the
I
dogs
mix them
having
up.
sex with him. Isn't that guy?
Yeah.
I
think we did a show about that motherfucker.
Yeah,
too.
the toolbox killers were two guys driving around. They were fucking loser looking friends, kind of hippie looking, from what I remember, back in the 70s. driving around in a white van. I think it was a white van, wasn't it?
Of course it was.
It was a work van.
The
It had a
cliche has to
mattress
come
in the
from
back
somewhere.
and a toolbox back there. And places where you could chain somebody up to the fucking floor of the thing, if I remember correctly. Handcuffs, and then they had like stereo and a tape recorder, and they would get people to come in, smoke weed, and sometimes, and then they fucking slap cups on them when they were smoking weed.
I mean, that's what I mean. You can't ever... I know it was a more freewheeling time, but you can't just get in a rape van with somebody that you don't know just because they have drugs.
That's how I remembered. I may be wrong. I just remembered that they killed one girl by sticking an ice pick through her ear, and that didn't kill her. So they did it through the other ear, and that didn't kill her either.
I remember
They
that.
killed her with something else. I've forgotten.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But they had like all this... Yeah. Like I said, that was kind of their whole thing. But
They were
yeah...
going to go on this thing where they were going to kill an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. They had a whole...
Yeah, they had like
goals.
They had wrong certain ages.
They had a little dream board with all of
Yeah,
that on it or
yeah.
some shit.
And they got that partly
Christ,
done.
man.
I think they got most. I think they got a lot of them.
These people, man.
Yeah, and they were when he got caught. They were still kind of bragging about it. They thought this shit was cool. And they fucking tortured him badly. You know, with tools out of that toolbox.
Yeah, it's just gross.
Mm-hmm.
It's gross that there's people out there, and like I said, you don't know them. You could just be walking past them. I could be in the Dollar General and have walked past the fucking serial killer and wouldn't even
Notice
know.
it was a lot of these guys born in the 40s, late 40s, 50s.
It's all that lead brains.
I think it was lead. Lead gasoline. How do you know when those dudes weren't kids? They were fucking putting gasoline on a rag out in the fucking garage and fucking huffing gasoline. Leaded gasoline. And maybe that might do it. Getting
Yeah.
high as teenagers.
I mean, the thing...
Kids.
Well, yeah, because the thing about it, like, a lot of people make fun of boomers is, like, you know, lead heads and stuff like that. That's why they act the way they act, like, nowadays, because the lead, like, ate their brains. But the thing about it is that our generation, you know, Gen X, there was still, like, a lot of lead particles in the air when we were kids, too. So it's like we might have some of the same
I remember
side
it
effects. Although, as far as I know, I'm not a psychopath.
I remember it
so.
I am.
Well, you are, but
yeah, but I keep it on a check. But
you haven't really you're not a serial killer that I know of.
no,
Don't make me turn up on one of those
No,
documentaries
no.
where it's like I didn't have any idea we were
No.
together for 14 years.
I like to fight. You know, but the serial killer thing, no.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like your thing.
No. But the
You seem like more like somebody that would get involved in like underground fight club or something.
yeah, organized crime. Something
Or
like
yeah, you seem like that kind of
Yeah.
person. or like a hitman.
that. Yeah, something
You
like
seem
that.
like you'd be like you enjoy being a hitman.
Well, there'd have to be a reason for it.
That's
You
what
know
I'm saying.
it'd be hard for me to just kill innocent people for no real reason or no higher purpose or anything. You know.
I don't think I could do it, honestly.
I don't even think I'd fucking really could be a drone pilot. Like where they were fucking shooting Hellfire missiles at weddings because there was a terrorist there. And they got these other innocent people around there and they get fucking killed in a Hellfire blast, you know?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I could do
But,
it.
you know, and there was little old ladies doing that. Contractors.
Phantom asks, what's your military body count number?
Wouldn't talk about any of that kind of shit, man. What makes you think it'd be military? Maybe it was when I got out. I was a defense contractor, remember?
Yeah. He
That's
could,
where the money is.
He could tell you, but then he'd have to kill you.
Yeah. Or it might be breaking some kind of an agreement I might have, and they might send me to prison.
Yeah, true.
Or, you know, or maybe I'm the kind of guy that I would never be believed what I said anyway. I don't want to get into all that. I told you guys who I worked for a while.
Tammy says Tom's gonna be like Leon in The Professional.
Mm.
Yeah, you're more that kind of dude.
Yeah.
Like I could see you doing that kind of shit. Like if life circumstances had taken you a different way, but it's like I don't see you're not like a serial killer. You're not a serial killer type.
Mm-mm.
You know,
It'd have to
like I said,
involve-
I see you more as a contract killer type.
My good friend from the Army, his name is Timothy Van Vakius. You can look up his name. He's in prison right now. He ran an international mercenary security group, a security company. And they were contractors for Central American and South American governments. He's in prison right now because they accepted a hit on I don't know all the details, and I don't know if all the details are true. They accepted a hit on on a what do you call him? Drug enforcement agent, a U.S. drug enforcement agent, and I think it might have been a setup because the countries he was working for were kind of like United States or CIA puppets too, but they ran a death squad. They killed hundreds and hundreds of people. And they would just show up as cops in real uniforms, real training, real cop cars from the country that they were in, and they'd arrest you. They said, we got to take you back to the station. But they didn't take you to the station. They took you to a pre-planned fucking grave site and shot you in the head, threw you in there and buried it up. You were never heard from again. Yeah. Governments do that. And what it is, it's like they were also working for cartels. They were going to make a movie about him. But I didn't know he was doing it at the time. I'd heard rumors that because, you know, all my unit members, we all keep in contact with each other through the internet. During the time he started that, I wasn't available. I was working as a contractor for an anti-terror unit that was teaching people about post-blast investigations. I worked at a camp that was trained foreign law enforcement and foreign military people how to put a bomb back together after it was blown up and try to figure out how it was done and who did it. All right. Sounds all fantastic. I wasn't EOD. I just worked at that facility because there's all kinds of shit you have to do. It's basically like a big advanced training institute. It was in a secret location. The main client was State Department. But look up Timothy Van Vakius. They probably killed 400 or 500 people. Him and like 6 other guys. And they were, it's a German, a dude from Poland, a couple guys from Russia. But they were all bilingual. They spoke English and Spanish. I think they took some of their own, they created some of their own mercenaries that were Hispanic. They recruited from the area. They used them as contractors. And they had all the connections and to receive money for arresting people and killing them. And sometimes it was more, according to some of the stories that had leaked out over it, some of it was kind of more like paramilitary attacking a compound. You know, like something just out of, very much something kind of like out of the Expendables, kind of like that. But they were also dealing drugs, too. Which I don't, and then they were also doing shit on the stock market. It was very sophisticated, and and that was some way of getting black funding back to whoever it was they were working for. I would say probably CIA. It's just that the contractors are 5 or 6 layers deep behind other organizations that are criminal, but they all fucking trace back to CIA. Yeah, and foreign governments. But they were going to make a movie about him. But I got pictures of me and him together in the Army. All right, that's all. Let's go.
All right, CB says, Peter Tobin won't talk about his mom. Someone wanted to fuck mommy, I think. I kind of feel like a lot of serial killers maybe have that. Yeah, they don't know a huge amount about... I mean, they do know some about his childhood, but not a lot. But he doesn't, talk about his mom all that much. We got, there's a little thing in here from Michelle M. It's, member for 1 month. So, congratulations. You got me through tonight's workout. Thanks.
Okay, yeah.
And we haven't even started the fucking topic yet, really. So, I mean, Michelle, we're kind of, we're kind of dancing around as we usually do.
Tell me what your workout is, Michelle. I'll get to you in a bit. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing, what your goals are.
Yeah, CB said, and I was going to bring this up too. I forgot Peter Tobin took a bread knife to his ex-wife's lady parts, and she couldn't have children after, if I remember correctly. Yes, that is absolutely true. And we will get into that in a little bit. Because I watched a documentary about him, and they didn't mention that because they were mostly just talking about his murder victims. And then I watched another one that was a lot more in-depth. It was super long. And they brought that up, and I out loud, alone in my office, I was like, what the fuck? When she said that, I was just like, oh my god, that's fucking crazy. Oh, and trigger warning, if you're an animal lover like I am, some pretty bad shit happens to a puppy at some point, so it's bad. So I'm just telling you ahead of time. So you can be nope out if you want to. I'll tell you when it's coming. Because I read that and I was just like, nope. I was like, he deserves to die just for that. Yeah. Like, if they had caught him just doing that, nope, blap, right there. No, thank you. It's like, I mean, aside from, like, all the other horrific things that he did, I was like, if that was the only thing he did, they should have just shot him like a rabid dog. So this motherfucker, Peter Tobin, like I said, he doesn't have a fancy name or nothing like that, which is probably good. He was actually born in a town in Scotland called Johnstone, which is in, I think it's called Johnstone, Renfrewshire, I guess is the county. Incidentally, I'm pretty sure, fun fact, that this is the same place that Gordon Ramsay is from. I wonder if Gordon Ramsay's ever said that. It's like, hey, the only two famous people from this town, me and serial killer Peter Tobin. So there, I mean, there might be other famous people from there. I'm not really sure, but those are the only two that I know of. But yeah, that didn't occur to me until later. I was like, I'm pretty sure Gordon Ramsay is from there too. Yeah. Now, he was either the youngest or the second youngest, I've heard conflicting accounts, of 8 children that his parents had. Now, his dad just had a regular-ass job. He was just like an engineer for waterworks or something like that. And his mom was, you know, a housewife, as a lot of women were back in the 40s. So there was that. Now, even as a kid, he was kind of a troublemaker. I kind of feel like troublemaker is a little mild. His brother even called him wild, quote unquote. He was very difficult. They said that other kids would sometimes tease him because he was kind of little for his age, and he had a real quick temper. Like, if something didn't go his way, he would just, like, flip out and just, like, have fucking tantrums, you know what I mean? Now, his parents and his older siblings would beat on him when he misbehaved, which seemed like it was pretty much all the time, to be honest. But like I said, that's not good, but I'm just saying this was 1940s, 1950s. I feel like that was kind of common. Like, if the kids were bad, you would just smack them around. That's just kind of what people did. I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying that's what they did. So it's like, I'm not saying that it was anything unusual. So it seemed like they're like, even from an early age, he was always fighting with his older siblings and with other neighborhood kids. He would break shit in the house. He would throw rocks at like stray animals in the neighborhood, shit like that. So like I said, it's not looking good at this point. It got so bad that when he was 7 years old in 1953, his mom was like, fuck this kid, I can't deal with him anymore. So they sent him to what was then called an approved school, which is kind of like a reform school, pretty much. They do give you like an education, but they're also trying to like make you not be such a fucking hellion, you know what I mean? And they said while he was there, and keep in mind he's only 7, 8 years old at this point, that he would just like run away from there all the time, and just like go and like camp out in alleys and shit like that. Now, because this was 1953, these reform schools, you know, not a great place either. They would beat the crap out of the kids in there too, because that's just kind of what everybody thought. That's how you thought you got kids to behave. You just beat the crap out of them. You know what I mean? Didn't work out so good usually, but that's what they did. Now, later on, when he was a little bit older, he actually got sent to we don't have this. We have this over here, but it's not called this. It's in the UK. It was called a borstal. It's kind of like juvie, you know what I mean, like juvenile retention center, kind of like a prison for kids, you know what I mean. And they don't have those there anymore. They stopped them in the 80s. I'm sure they have an equivalent nowadays, but even I remember seeing like documentaries and movies and stuff like that, like back in the 80s and 90s, about the borstal system and how it was just like rife with abuse, just like people beating the shit out of the, you know, people that worked there beating the shit out of the kids, like other kids beating the shit out of the kids. Like, it was just like not a good situation, and nobody is getting fucking reformed in there, obviously, because everyone's just being abused. So like I said, not justifying what he's doing, I'm just saying this was kind of like the environment that he grew up in. So when he got out of there, it seemed like sometime around this time, like he was able to kind of get odd jobs, because at the reform school and the borstal and stuff like that, they did actually teach them skills like bricklaying and, you know, electrical shit and that kind of, you know, building, that kind of stuff. And so he was able to kind of get odd jobs here and there. So he was able to save up money and buy a motorbike. And so he started like driving around the country. Like I said, he's kind of nomadic. So he would drive around the country on his motorbike, just like camping out, didn't really have a fixed address for a while, and he would try to like get in with biker gangs. Although as far as I know, like he wasn't successful in any of these endeavors, like trying to get, hey, can I be in your biker gang? They were like, no. So
you have to have a certain look.
So yeah, I don't know what he looked like at this point, but yeah, I like I said, I don't know how successful he was, but that's kind of what he was doing. Now, also right around this time, because he couldn't really hold down a job because he was kind of a shithead, sometime in the late 60s, they think that he tried to join the French Foreign Legion. Now, reports differ. They say he was either rejected immediately because they were like, no thank you, like we can tell you're trouble, or he was able to join, but then shortly after he joined, he deserted. You know what I mean? So it didn't really last very long, regardless of what happened. Now, it was also right around this time that Peter Tobin started what would be kind of a lifelong endeavor for him, which was using a bunch of different aliases and backstories. He seemed to really kind of get, every time he met a new person, he would give them like a different name and a different like history and shit. Like he would just make shit up, which, like I said, just sounds exhausting. Like, how do you keep all that shit straight? You know what I mean? I don't understand how people do this kind of crap. Maybe he didn't care because he was just kind of like, I'll never meet this person again, so I don't have to remember it. But he would give him like all these different names, and he would change cars frequently also, which, you know, kind of became more of a thing like as he started getting into crime and stuff. It was estimated that they know of that he probably had about 40 different identities or fake names, you know what I mean, that he used over the years. Now, in 1967, he actually got a job as a trainee chef in Glasgow under an assumed name. That was kind of his thing that he did. His co-workers there that they interviewed later thought that he was delightful. They thought he was very friendly, very charming. They did note, they said, wow, he's got a hair trigger temper though, man. Like, if something doesn't go the way, he just like flips the fuck out. But they're like, other than that, delightful human being. Which, like I said, which goes a long way toward how he was able to get women to marry him. Because he was superficially very charming at first, like when you first met him. Like, a lot of people said that about him. Now, this job, he apparently liked it. Like, he worked there a while, and he worked like really, really long hours, and he was like starting to save up money to get his own place. So he wasn't like one of these disorganized motherfuckers where he couldn't keep his shit together. Like, he had a little bit of that, but he did seem like when he wanted something, like he could work toward a goal, you know? Like, he's like, I'm just going to work double shifts at this job and like have X amount of money, and then I'm going to buy my own place or whatever. And around this time too, while he was still in Glasgow, he met a 17-year-old girl. He was 22 or 23 around this time, named Margaret Mountney. Better known as Maggie. Now, she had a job. She was a typist and a clerk. And he met her in 1969 at the Barrowlands Ballroom in Glasgow, which, if you'll remember shit about Bible John, that is where Bible John picked up all 3 of his victims at the Barrowlands Ballroom in Glasgow, which was like a nightclub there. So that's kind of one of the things that kind of pinged their radar, is that's where he met his first wife. Now, the two of them, they got together. Like I said, she was only 17 at the time. He was a bit older than her, 4 or 5 years older. They moved to Brighton, which is in England, not Scotland. And they kind of moved abruptly. So they don't really know exactly why. They think maybe somebody got a better job offer, or it could be that he had committed some kind of crime and was trying to get the fuck out of Dodge. Because later on, they know that he did that. Like, after he got caught and after they looked back into his history and stuff, they were like, oh, he had a real habit of doing that. He would commit a crime and then he'd be like, oh, we have to move. And they would like move to another city or like across the country or something like that. So the fact that they moved to Brighton like so quickly kind of made them suspicious, but they haven't like linked anything this early to him. Now, his wife, Maggie, said, as would his subsequent 2 wives, that he was very, very charming at first. She's like, she met him at the club. It's like he came over, she was there with her friend, and him and another dude like came over and talked to them like all, and he was like so sweet, and he would bring her flowers, and they would go on dates, and they would go this and that, and she's like, it was just awesome. But as time went on, he became more and more controlling and more aggressive, to a point where he was basically just like beating the crap out of her. He raped her multiple times. He would lock her in the house when he left so she couldn't get out. Like, he would lock her in a room. She couldn't get out. And here's the thing about the puppy. So, I believe he bought her the puppy. Like, they'd been together for a while at this point. Because they did get married at some stage. So he bought her a puppy. She named it Butte, which was what I believe that was her grandmother's name. It was a black lab, I think it was. And
how old was it? How big were we talking? Little?
Well, it was a puppy.
Okay.
It was a puppy.
So little, yeah.
Yeah, it was a little puppy. And one day she was allowed to go out to the grocery store, and she hadn't been out in a while. And I guess the puppy wasn't used to her not being in the house, so it started barking and whining because it was like, where's my mama?
Yeah.
And Peter Tobin was home, and apparently the puppy started barking, and he got aggravated. And so he went into the kitchen and got a knife, and he beheaded the puppy. And then he gave the puppy's head to some kids outside and let them play soccer with it. They were kicking a puppy's head around.
Why?
And so when his wife comes home, she sees these kids like out in the
playing with it.
Yeah, and she's like freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you would. And he's like, "Oh yeah, it was barking, and I just threw it out the window." That's what he said. That's what he told her. Can you imagine?
Piece of shit.
That's what I mean. It's like, if he had not done anything else, because obviously he's still been beating and raping his wife and shit like that too. Yeah. But it's like, if that's the only thing he had done, nope. You need to be taken out of the human race.
That's weird there.
Right now.
And he did that
Because
shit.
nothing good ever comes of somebody that'll do something like that.
I think he did that shit to fucking, to torment the wife.
Well, yeah, obviously.
That's what it was.
And I think because...
It wasn't so much about the dog. He just was trying
No, because some of the sources I read, I don't know if he bought her the dog.
Yeah.
But I thought most of the sources I read said he did get her the dog. And I was thinking he got her the dog specifically for the purpose of later... Killing it to fuck with her.
Yeah.
Because that totally sounds like something
Sounds like something he might have fantasized about.
Yeah.
A sadist would fantasize about some shit like that because it's a power thing.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, look, honey, like, I'm so sorry. I've been doing all this horrible stuff to you. Here, I got this for you."
Yeah.
And then let her get attached to it, and then
kill it,
and then killed it in like the most horrific way possible.
Evidently, like pedos have done that to children. Give them an animal, then they kill the animal. You tell, I'll fucking do this to you with that. That's just what I heard. I don't know if that actually happened.
I mean, that sounds like some shit they would do. Too.
Yeah, to get them to fucking, usually a relative. Get him to not talk about it, type of deal. Keep him silent.
Well, that's how one of Peter Tobin's, we'll get to this in a bit, but like one of Peter Tobin's later wives said that one of the reasons why she didn't stay that long, but the reason she stayed long was because they had a kid together, and he kept saying, "I'm going to throw this baby down the stairs. If you leave, or if you don't do what I say," or something like that. So she was afraid.
Yeah, that was evidently another thing
that he would kill the kid.
Pedos would do is they'd give him another animal to take care of, and say, "If you tell, then I'll kill that one." And then you got him. You're holding the animal hostage, basically.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
So, it's probably what he was doing.
Yeah.
Trying to set it up for that. Same woman had a baby with him?
This woman did not.
Okay, all right.
And, as CB mentioned earlier, he also, I don't know if he just did this, I think he just did this once. He raped her with a knife. As in, he stuck a knife multiple times up her vagina. It was bleeding so much that the blood dripped into the apartment underneath.
Damn.
And the neighbors were like, "What the fuck?
How did she not die?"
Well, she went to the hospital.
All right. How did she explain that to him?
That's the thing. She basically said, because she was terrified of him, right? And she's just, she's young, right? She's only 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's seen him behead a puppy. She's like all this, and he's beating her and locking her in a room and shit like that. And she's like terrified of him, like, and justifiably so. So it's
physically, how big is this guy?
I don't know.
It's serious fucking inadequacy issues and insecurities. Trying to get control over total control over another woman. That's because you think you know she's gonna leave you. And you know why? You know, okay.
But then, like,
that's what's happening there.
Well, you're acting in ways that are like making her want to leave you even more.
Yeah,
and possibly even kill you in your sleep.
Yeah, something deeper than that though. It's fucking inadequacy issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something like that.
Because this is part of his mechanism to keep a woman. That's what he's doing. Best way to keep her is to hold her in fear and to diminish her, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly what he does. And like I said, he did it with all of his wives.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of women.
He's a piece of shit.
He was, yeah. So the fact that he did this, so like her vagina was like all fucking torn up, and so she could never have children afterward.
How do they treat that? Just let it heal up?
I guess. I'm not really sure. I mean, she bled so much. Like, I was surprised she didn't die too, because when I heard about that, I was like, what the fuck?
It was a kitchen knife, huh?
I think so, yeah. But like, so like she lived, but she can't have kids now. She's infertile. So that's nice. So he did that.
She stayed with him.
Well, like I said, she was scared of him. And he wouldn't really let her leave the house, to be honest with you. Like, he kept her locked up. And as I said, I kind of feel like, see, this is the kind of thing, and I think a lot of like abused women like kind of fall into this, especially if they're younger. They kind of get a weird kind of like, not Stockholm syndrome, but like they're just like so terrified that it's like, oh, if I leave, he's just gonna find me, or if I just, you know what I mean? Because the thing about it is that
they blow the dude out of proportion.
Well, the thing about it too, though, is that a lot of women that are abused and people are like, why don't you just leave? I would note that most abused women that are murdered when they're trying to leave. Yeah. So they have a justifiable fear that the dude will try to kill them if they leave, because a lot of times that does happen. So it's just kind of like, I think they just get so beaten down by it that they're just like, they feel like they can't do anything. Like I said, you could possibly kill him in his sleep. That's probably what my move would be.
If you want to leave a man and he's like that, my advice to you is get you a big ass fucking boyfriend, a big ass fucking gun, and a big ass dog. That's what I do.
I mean, I gotta pee.
Yeah.
So,
expound on that a little bit. We expound on that?
Expound on a little bit more.
Yeah. Just, you can get away with it, dude. Maybe not by yourself, but eventually you just if you don't have any male relatives that can come help you, get you another fucking boyfriend. Even if he's only a temporary boyfriend, just make sure he's fucking bigger and fucking scarier than the other dude. Have him chase his ass off. I've seen that done before. And in the U.S., you can buy a pistol. If you put a fucking restraining order against a dude, and that woman shoots you because you're in the vicinity, there's not a fucking jury in the U.S. gonna fucking convict you. If you got a restraining order against you and you go back up on her, she fucking plugs you, especially anywhere in the South. She's not even spending a day in jail. Justifiable. It's gonna be called justifiable homicide. You just have to have the fucking paper trail. And I'm in the fucking state here. Florida. Mississippi has it. I think Texas is starting to adopt it. I don't remember. We have, in Alabama, we have what's called constitutional carry. If you can legally purchase a firearm here, you can legally carry it. So there's some stipulations. You can't take it into a place like a nightclub. You can't take it into a place where they sell alcohol. But basically, anybody could be packing here. Anybody.
Yeah, Tammy also says most abused women are actually killed after they leave the men. Yeah, that is true. So like I said, it's not as cut and dried as just leave.
We just saw a program on that. Dude left the dude. She had a new boyfriend and everything. And guy came in. He was out of the picture for months. Came in with a fucking mask and a bat.
He hid in her house while she was out with her new boyfriend.
Yeah.
And her 2 kids came home with her. She didn't live with the new boyfriend at the time. She lived on her own with the kids.
He came out with a bat and fucking beat her to death.
And just beat her to death.
And I guess he thought the boyfriend was going to be there. He was going to get him too, probably.
Yeah.
But he wasn't with her. He let the kids go, though.
Yeah, he didn't do anything to the kids. I mean, thankfully, but they saw him, but he had a ski mask on.
That was the last thing she said. So don't you do anything to my boys. Then she
told them to run. They were fucking terrified.
Yeah.
And actually, they found out that one of the kids was actually in the room with her.
Yeah, but she was getting beat to death
when it happened.
He was hiding underneath the bed.
They had both this. They're grown now, obviously, but they had both of them on talking about it. It was a horrible fucking story.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like I said, she had broken up with him. They weren't married. They had just dated for like not even a year.
Yeah.
And she was just like, nah, this isn't really working for me. And she left, and then, like, several months later, ended up dating another dude. And it was actually the other dude, the dude she was dating this time, that called 911 because he was worried. Because he's like, look, I'm on the phone with my girlfriend. It's like, it sounds like weird over there. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And he heard all these weird sounds on the phone. Because she was on the phone with him when the other dude, like, attacked her. You know what I mean? So, and the boyfriend didn't know what was going on. So he called 911. So it's a show called Murder Calls.
Yeah, pretty good show.
So the whole thing is based around 911 because they usually play the 911 calls, and most of them are pretty fucking horrifying. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and it has like a disclaimer at the beginning. It's like, if you want to keep your faith in humanity, please do not listen to these 911 calls because a lot of them are like really horrible. And like I said, you're listening to people like in the last moments of their lives and shit like that. But yeah, so I don't know. So I've been watching that. But that was one of the ones that we watched last night. And then another one that we watched too was a case from Colorado. I think it was 2006 or 2007. And it was a transgender woman, and she had been dating this dude, and like for not that long, but for like a little while, and I guess he'd been staying over at her apartment, and he also beat her to death, I believe with a fire extinguisher. I mean, they did eventually catch him, obviously, but they're not really sure. I think that was the first time that they prosecuted the murder of a transgender woman or a transgender person as a hate crime. So it was kind of like historic, you know what I mean? But because they're pretty sure that was part of the motive. Like, the dude didn't realize that she was transgender, which seems a little weird because she kind of had a thing, like all her sisters and everything said no. She always told people like right away, like so they wouldn't get the wrong idea or whatever, like so they wouldn't be surprised later on or whatever. But they thought that maybe the boyfriend was upset, like he didn't want anybody to find out about it, and so. But it might have been that. But that was a really fucking sad case, too. She was... And her sisters fucking found her, like, beaten to death on the fucking floor of her apartment. It was awful. But, yeah. So, I don't know why I watch this shit. I don't know. I can't stop. I can't stop watching it. You know what I mean? Even though it's horrifying. But, yeah. So, like we were saying, a lot of women, if they leave, they'll just... The dude will find them and get murdered afterwards. So, it's just kind of like it's not as easy as just leaving. So yeah, this poor woman. Now, luckily for her, I mean, I guess that's a weird thing to say after all the fucking horrible shit she's been through. But in 1970, this motherfucker I guess he was having a hard time keeping a job because, like I said, he's a piece of shit, and I guess he didn't want to stay anywhere that long.
Oh,
what?
The TV stand has been delivered.
Oh, okay.
I'll move it in there and get it.
Okay, so it's down.
Yeah, downstairs.
Yeah, we got one for the.
Yeah, TV stand
for the
TV
upstairs living room.
Yeah.
But he got, so he hadn't really been able to keep a job, so he started, like, committing crimes, like you would. So he started doing forgeries, like, I think he stole some shit, like, from their neighbors, and he stole, like, a checkbook and, like, started forging checks to, like, get money and stuff, and so they caught him, and, he got, 5 years for that, so they sent him to prison. He only ended up serving 3, but they gave him a 5-year sentence for, forgery and for burglary. So, thankfully, he was put away in prison, and at that stage, Maggie was like, okay, thank God, like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. So she left, and because he was gone, and she filed for divorce in 1971 while he was in prison. Now, like I said, he got out after 3 years, and almost immediately he found another woman to marry, and I think this was like pretty quick. If I remember correctly, most of the sources I said, I don't know where he met this woman. She was a nurse, and she was, like I said, age appropriate. She was a couple years, she was 30, so that was kind of more age appropriate because I think he was in his mid to late 20s at this stage. And then, so I don't know where they met exactly, but I think they married or got together as a couple after only knowing each other like 3 weeks, which that it seems a little quick, like I said, but that's just kind of a testament to how charming he was, at least at first, because he was very easily able to like talk women into relationships, but it was like only a little bit later, like when you found out what a fucking horrible person he was. So they got married in Brighton in 1973. And then later that year, they had a son named Ian. And then in 1975, they had a daughter whose name was Claire, but she actually died in childbirth. She had like some kind of thing with, I think it was had to do with her breathing or her lungs or something like that, and she didn't live that long. Now, this woman reported the same stuff later on. One of the things she reported as happening a lot was that he was real into, hey, it's Pookie.
Yep. He was real into what?
He was real into choking her during sex, and that every single time it would get more and more egregious until like she was going unconscious and she was like freaking like, oh my god, he's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
And he was doing other stuff like just beating the crap out of her and stuff like that. So she actually stayed until 1976, and then she took Ian, their son, and got the fuck out of there and like went to a women's shelter. So she thankfully escaped this motherfucker, because I'm sure he would have, and if any of these women had stayed, I'm sure they probably would have ended up getting murdered at some stage. You know what I mean? He would have murdered them for sure.
Eventually killed her.
Yeah. Now after this,
he's killing other women. He's got to be.
That's, yeah, I kind of feel like I said, when we're getting through the timeline, because we're only in like 1976-ish right about now.
Yeah.
And they don't really have accounts of his whereabouts for long stretches of time. Like, he could have been doing all kind of stuff.
He's probably killing prostitutes.
I feel like probably so.
Yeah.
Now,
wives don't know.
After she left, Sylvia, his wife, they don't really know where he was for like a decade. They speculate that he was probably doing what he was doing before. Like, he still had his motorbike, and he was probably just like being nomadic and like just taking his motorbike around the country, hanging out with biker gangs, that kind of stuff. So it's very possible that between 1976 and 1986, he might have done all kind of shit. You know what I mean? Because they don't really know where he was. They didn't really have any records of any jobs that he had or where, because like I said, he was always changing his identity. So they didn't know where he was for that 10 years. And then the next time he turns up, about 1986, where he gets into a relationship with a young woman named Kathy Wilson. Now at this stage, he was 40 and she was 16. So yeah. Now, Kathy, also, she didn't have like the best upbringing. It seemed like she was 16, but she was living on her own because her dad had abandoned her when she was a baby. And her mom was a drug addict who had died of an overdose like the year prior, like when she was 15 years old. So not a great home life that she had. So, you know, this charming Scottish man comes along and sweeps you off your feet or whatever. You're going to kind of, you know, get into that, I guess. Now, they had a son, too, named Daniel. He was born in 1988, and then they got married in 1989. And then, the next year, in 1990, they moved to Bathgate, which is in Scotland again. And just like the prior wives, Kathy said that he was very, very abusive. It was the strangulation thing, the beatings, everything like that, threatening to throw the baby down the stairs if she left, all this other kind of crap. So after they moved to Scotland, she only hung around for like about 8 more months. And then she was like, fuck this noise. And she moved back to Portsmouth in England, which is where she was from. She also said that Peter Tobin would bring home sex workers and then make her watch him, like, rape and beat them.
Huh. And those girls didn't go to the fucking cops or their
Well,
pimp.
I guess, yeah, I don't know. I guess not. Like I said, that was just something that I, like... that I heard on one podcast that I...
That's some Scottish shit there. You can't do that here in the U.S. The pimp will come and beat the fuck out of you. Yeah. Pimps or gangs.
I mean, you would think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how all three wives, when they interviewed them later, said the same exact thing. Like, they had no idea. Like,
that
at
tells
first,
me he was killing prostitutes.
I kind of feel like probably.
Yeah.
And that might have been why they didn't have enough evidence. Like I said, at the end, I'm going to get into like some other cases that I don't think. Well, maybe one of them might have been a sex worker. Most of them were not, but it's possible that he was doing that kind of stuff.
There, he'd show up with a hooker and watch this, and he'd start beating her up. Fucking
Evidently, that's what she said.
Did he pay her? Did he pay him?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he did pay, and he just said, "Oh, I like rough stuff."
Maybe.
And they were like, "Oh, okay." Maybe they were just putting up with it.
Maybe.
Because he already said that he wanted that. There's all kind of fucking...
I want to know the whole story.
I can't imagine. I don't know. Like I said, most of his wife... I know for sure that his first wife, she's done extensive interviews like on document, because there's clips of her on several documentaries that I watched, and his second wife has been interviewed too. I'm not sure about the third one. Like, I know she's been interviewed in the media, but I don't know if she's been interviewed like in documentaries and stuff, because I don't remember seeing her. But yeah. So, but yeah, that's what she claimed anyways. So, right around in here, in February of 1991, in fact, this is where his first, that they know of, murder victim disappeared. She was 15. Her name is Vicky Hamilton. Now, she disappeared from a bus stop in Bathgate, Scotland. Now, nobody knew what happened to her until after Tobin got caught. And he didn't get caught until 2006.
Wow.
So we're going to talk about that later on after he got caught. Yeah, it was 2006 he got caught.
And he picked her up when?
He kidnapped her from a bus stop in 1991.
91.
Yeah, she was like waiting at a bus stop.
And he's in 91. How old is he?
He's about 40. He was born in 1946.
Yeah.
So he's in his 40s.
Yeah, you're a pedo.
Yeah, obviously.
Going that young.
Obviously.
He likes them harmless.
Yeah.
Smaller and weaker. Yeah.
So
makes him feel bigger.
Yeah. So, like you said, he probably has some inadequacy issues.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like is at the root of a lot of serial killers, pathology, and just like misogyny in general.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's kind of at the heart of it.
One that I was thinking of was what was his name? McDuff. I just talked about him a couple days ago. I forgot his first name. Kenneth, maybe?
Yeah, I think that was his first name.
Kenneth McDuff.
Didn't we do
Kenneth McDuff was like 6 foot something. He was big, but he was weak, and he was known for being big and weak. Would get beat up a lot in school by guys who were smaller than him but more athletic. When he became a serial killer, which he became a serial killer quickly around that time, he was 6 something. You had to be like 4'10", 4'11", under 5 feet. He lived to kill small women. That's what he fucking focused on. Because he knew he could take them.
Yeah.
Made him feel bigger and stronger. He was big but weak.
I kind of feel like this dude was the same. I think most of his victims were small.
Yeah.
So it's probably a similar thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know how big this dude was or how tall he was or anything like that. He didn't look like super muscular or anything, but I don't know how tall he was. But he seemed to pick like small women.
McDuff
and girls.
Looked big. But it was all frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a skeleton. I know there evidently wasn't much meat on him. People could beat him up pretty easily. Other men could. Weird.
So like I said, I find it hard to believe that the first murder that they know he committed, like I said, they didn't know until after he was caught in 2006, but she disappeared in 1991, and they're pretty sure that's when she was killed as well. So he was in his 40s, and I find it hard to believe that he just started killing people then. You know what I mean? Like, that was the whole point of them doing Operation Anagram, because they didn't buy it either. They're like, nobody in their mid-40s just decides to be a serial killer. This dude has done other shit.
Yeah.
So that's why they look back at stuff.
Yeah.
So like I said, we'll talk more.
Shit in his teens.
We'll talk more about her later, because they didn't find her body until much later, and it's like they didn't know it was him, because she just disappeared. They didn't know where she was for all that time.
Must have offered to give her a ride.
Yeah, he probably just stopped to pick her up or
Yeah.
snatch her from the bus stop. Who fucking knows? And like I said, everybody that met him or knew him back in the day before they knew he was a serial killer, every single person said he was super, super charming.
Yeah.
That he could just like charm the fucking pants off you. So he could probably talk anybody into
Yeah.
anything.
Probably
Because he didn't look like much, to be honest. He wasn't ugly, but he wasn't real good looking either.
Just kind of invisible.
Yeah, like you wouldn't really. I don't think he would really like stand out in a crowd or anything like that. But, but apparently, like I said, he was super, super charming. So, like I said, I kind of feel like a lot of psychopaths are kind of like that. They sort of learn to do that to manipulate other people into doing what they want.
Yeah.
So that was February of 1991 that Vicky Hamilton went missing. Then in May of 1991, Peter Tobin again very suddenly moved to Margate, Kent, which I believe is about 500 miles from Bathgate, which is in Scotland. So again, this seems likely because he had just committed a murder, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go 500 miles away. You know what I mean?
Read what Tammy said. We'll talk about that for a second.
Oh, well, to be honest, if one was going to be looking to kill another person, you would want them to be smaller and weaker than you, so you have an almost guaranteed chance of overpowering them. Yeah, I mean...
You would think that, but that's not true. Okay, for instance, what's his name? Ted Bundy would have laughed at fucking... he would have laughed at Macduff. Ted Bundy was not a big guy. He was smaller than Macduff. He'd go after normal size, full-grown women that he thought were high status, and he had no problem overtaking them, and they were closer to his size. Bundy would have said that Macduff and guys that pick on the little ones like that, the ones that are very small, he would say that they were like bottom feeders, that they didn't have the skill that it took to take bigger game, basically. Some of them, and fucking Bundy, I'd say one of them, saw the whole thing as a challenge. It was like he was hunting. The prettier she was, the more he wanted her. And he'd go for that one. No hookers, none of that. He said that's all bottom feeding behavior. He wanted high status, really beautiful girls. So, no, he wasn't choosing them because they were smaller. If she was big and beautiful, he'd go for that too. Because he sees himself as like a big game hunter.
Yeah, Papa77 said Tobin was a killer of opportunity. He didn't have a specific victim in mind other than being young. He took advantage of opportunities. Yeah, he definitely did seem to. He didn't really have a type as such. I do think most of the women tended to be smaller, but I don't think he was specifically looking for that. I think he was just kind of looking for whatever he could get. Whoever was kind of out there and vulnerable,
at the time,
sort of thing.
Maybe, yeah.
So like I said, not too long after Vicky Hamilton disappeared, he moved across 500 miles away. Now, ostensibly, this was to be closer to his son and his ex-wife who lived nearby. Although I was watching a podcast with 3 British guys on it, and they were sitting there going, Margate in Kent is not, because the ex-wife and the son lived in Portsmouth, and they're like, that's a bit of a jog, they said. That's not that close. But, I mean, it's close enough, I guess, that you could, pop over there. But I kind of feel like, I don't think he gave a shit about seeing his son, to be honest with you. Because I don't think he was capable of giving a shit about anybody but himself. I think he just went there to keep an eye on his ex-wife, because he liked to have control over people. I think that's why he did that. And also, like I said, he was trying to get away from a crime that he committed. So that was in May of 1991, and at this stage, he was down there for a while, and then I think he moved back to Bathgate and rented a house on Irvine Drive, which, spoiler alert, is the one where they would find some bodies later on. Now, in August of 1991, and we'll talk a little bit more about this because they didn't find out about this until after he got caught either. But he picked up 2 hitchhikers in Hampshire, at Liphook, a place called Liphook. It was a young man and a young woman, and they were coming back from a music festival. And they thought he was a little bit odd, but they didn't think, I mean, according to the guy, because the guy lived, obviously, we thought he was kind of weird, but it's like we didn't think he was, anybody to fear, because like he had a baby seat like in the back seat of his car, because he had a little kid at this point, like a son, and he talked very fondly about like his wife and son, and he just seemed kind of normal in that regard. Like he seemed kind of harmless, so they didn't really like think anything about it. Now the male got dropped off like at kind of like an off ramp or whatever, but the girl, who was 18 years old and whose name was Dinah McNicol, stayed in the car because she was going farther, obviously. It will surprise no one to know that Dinah McNicol was never seen alive again. And like the previous victim, like Vicky, she was her body wasn't found until after Tobin's capture in 2006. So we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later on when we're talking about like his trial and stuff. I will say though that he withdrew almost £2,000 from her savings account after her murder, her disappearance.
How did he do that?
And I guess he took her shit.
A card?
I mean, yeah, he took her bank card. And
I wonder how he knew her pen number.
I don't know if he made her tell him, or I mean, it was 1991, so I don't know if it was easier to do back then.
No, you had to have a pen number.
Yeah, I mean, you still had to have a pin number, I would think. But yeah, he took it out of her account like after her murder, and at that point, like her family knew something was wrong, because they're like, we knew that she wouldn't take that money out because she was saving that very specifically, like for other things, and like so she wouldn't just be taking it out. So that's how they knew something was wrong. But they didn't know what happened to her until, like I said, until like 2006, 2007.
She either had that written down on a piece of paper in her purse somewhere.
That's possible too, because I know some people do that.
Or he made her tell.
Yeah.
Under some kind of promise, and then killed her after she told.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's probably what happened. But yeah, because he did take a bunch of money out. Now, following Dinah McNicol's disappearance, no one is entirely sure what Peter Tobin was up to for the next couple of years. It's speculated, obviously, that he was responsible for more murders in this time period, which I don't doubt at all. Just like that 10-year period where he was unaccounted for between 1976 and 1986. I'm sure he did a bunch of shit through there that they just haven't figured out yet. So then, after that, the next thing, and he did actually get caught for this, but we'll see how that turned out. So this happened in early August of 1993. He was living in this, in a flat in Hampshire, in a place called, I think it's called Havant. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. And these 2 14-year-old girls had come to visit his neighbor. And the neighbor wasn't home. So evidently the girls came and knocked on his door to ask if they could wait in his apartment, because it was like raining out or something like that, and there wasn't anywhere for them to wait. So they asked if they could wait in there. They didn't think anything nefarious, because he had his little son, Daniel, who I think was like a toddler, or he was maybe 4 or 5 at this point. And he was in there, so they're like, oh, it's just like a dad, like with his kid. Like, it didn't seem weird or anything. I think there were also, like, I saw some reports too that, like, he asked them, oh, you can babysit my son, or I have to go out, or something like that. Like, but I don't know. I think most of the reports I saw said that they actually were going to visit a neighbor. He wasn't home, or they weren't home. And so they said, hey, mister, can we wait in here because it's raining? And he's like, of course you can. Now, again, it will not surprise anybody to know that something horrific happened. They both lived, thank God, but it's just like they went through a fucking horrible ordeal. So basically, he lets them in the flat, and then he's like, hey, I'm going to go get something out of the kitchen. And then he comes back out with a knife And he forces them to drink a bunch of vodka and cider, and then he tied them up, raped and sodomized them, and stabbed one of them in the shoulder. And all of this while his little son, Daniel, who, like I said, was 4 or 5 at the time, was right there. And he was just like, hey, I'm just playing a game. Daddy's playing a game with these two.
Who were these 2 girls?
They were just girls. They had actually come to visit his neighbor.
Okay.
And the neighbor wasn't home. And so they evidently knocked on his door and said, hey, it's raining out. Like, can we wait in your flat, like, for this dude for this person to get back? And they didn't think anything was weird because he was just in there with his little kid. And so they thought that was okay, I guess.
So what do you do with him?
What I just said. Like, he held him at knife point.
Yeah, you didn't kill him?
Well, he tried to. I haven't finished.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I haven't finished.
Yeah, that's
But yeah. So now so he's done all that. They're tied up. He's raped and sodomized them and stabbed one of them in the shoulder. And then he calls his ex-wife, and I think this Kathy was Daniel's mom, I think. Calls her and says, I don't feel good. Can you come and get the kid? Because I guess they had joint custody or whatever. And he was like, I don't feel good. Can you come and pick him up? And then he takes the kid outside and, like, hands him off to the wife. Well, the 2 girls are still in his fucking apartment.
Yeah.
Like, tied up and shit in there.
Yeah.
And then he turned the gas stove on in the apartment and didn't light it. And then he left and, like, closed all the windows. And he's like, oh, well, that'll kill him.
Yeah.
But thankfully, they escaped. They got out, and they got out. So they lived. And they reported him. Thankfully. They were 14.
Okay, yeah.
So,
kids.
Yeah, so they went through this fucking horrible... Yeah, it was fucking horrible that this happened. So, and, I mean, he had every intention of killing them. It's just they happened to...
That's a weird way of doing it. He wasn't... That's weird. He stabbed other women fucking up in the vag and shit. He couldn't cut their throats?
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. I don't know if he was, like, a little stymied because his kid was there, or...
Well, he got rid of the kid.
Well, no, that was after he had done all that stuff, though.
Yeah, he got rid of the kid, and then he had time with the girls alone.
Yeah, he could have done it then, but he could have done it then. Nah, fuck it, I'm just, like, leaving.
Yeah, that's weird. Maybe he was a little squeamish about that kind of stuff.
You wouldn't think, because he'd done shit like that before.
I would think that, yeah.
Which,
maybe he thought that was just like a Dr. Evil or something, like,
But like I said, he'd done worse shit than this prior to this that they didn't find out about until later.
Did he want the bodies, maybe?
That's another possibility.
Because they wouldn't have been, but you could strangle them, though, too.
Yeah.
And you'd have decent bodies left over.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because some of the guys are necrophiles, so...
Yeah, like, some of the serial killers, they don't really talk about it, but if they don't have any proof of it, I guess.
They're almost always set necrophiles.
But I kind of feel like, because the motherfucker that we were talking about that just shot the women,
yeah,
pretty sure that dude was a necrophile.
Yeah.
Because, like, he didn't want any fuss or muss.
Well,
he wasn't getting off on stabbing them or torture or anything like that. Yeah. He just wanted the body.
I mentioned Ted Bundy earlier. He's kind of like considered to be kind of like the best of the serial killers, kind of the Don Juan of them. He was a necrophile. He'd put your head in the refrigerator and fucking stick it up on the shelf and shit. Have sex with heads.
Yeah.
And when it got too rotten, he'd throw them away. Evidently, he went back on a couple occasions to where he had women stashed out in the woods and had sex with them Gary Ridgway style. It wasn't regular, but evidently he did that a couple times. These dudes are nasty.
They are nasty.
They're nasty.
And, like, the weird thing about it is a lot of times they'll absolutely confess to rape and murder.
But not necrophilia.
But not necrophilia.
Yeah.
Or pedophilia. Because Ted Bundy did some shit with underage girls, too. But he would not admit to that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows he did that shit, though. Everybody knows he did the necrophile shit, too, and I don't think he admitted to that either. He totally did that shit.
Who?
Though. Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
He totally did that shit, too. That's it. I'm just kind of like, look, if you're already raping and murdering people, oh, no, that's beyond the pale. Fuck you.
No, I think he did admit to the heads.
Maybe.
And the and sneaking back out there to go get a used one.
I mean,
yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, she's used. It's okay. Yeah.
She doesn't know.
Yeah, she don't know.
She doesn't know what hit her.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Dudes like this, man. I don't get it. So yeah. So after he did this nonsense, he decides he's gonna pull the usual shit that he pulls, and he's just like, I'm gonna move to another town and go into hiding. So he goes to Coventry in England under a false name, and he joins a religious sect like evangelical Christians or something called the Jesus Fellowship.
Yeah.
So he joins that. Now he was only there for a few days.
Gonna meet a nice woman,
I guess, that he can beat up and stab in the back.
Yeah.
But he was only there for a few days. But then the BBC did a Crime Watch program looking for this motherfucker. And the members of this fellowship church recognized him. And they called the media and said, "Here he is. Come get him." So they looked for him. They actually did find him later. He was in Brighton. Somebody spotted his car, and they caught him in Brighton. So he was actually put on trial for this. He pled guilty, and he got 14 years. Now, he only served about 10, though, unfortunately. So he was in prison for like a decade, which is... So he probably wasn't committing any crimes in that time period. But there was a lot of time where he was running around loose, where they don't know where he was. So they let him out in 2004, and he was 58 years old. Now, he went back to Paisley in Scotland. Now, they think that the flat that he lived in then, that he might have attacked another girl in a similar style, but I couldn't find much information on that. So I'm not really sure where that came from, but I saw that reported a couple of times.
This is how this guy has sex, I guess. He attacks you.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, Phantom says 14 years ain't shit for his crimes. Yeah, and like I said, this was even before... The 14 years was just for the rape and stabbing of the two 14-year-old girls. They didn't know about the murders yet. They didn't know about that.
In Louisiana, you'd get life.
Well, he would.
Yeah.
Like I said, they didn't know about the murders, but yeah. But yeah, I agree that 14 years wasn't enough. They should have just locked him up for life at this point.
Well, they would kind of consider that kidnapping, and you get fucking life for kidnapping.
Yeah, I mean, they don't fuck around with
They don't
that.
fuck around in the South.
Mm.
You fucking artificially imprison somebody, tie them up, or take them anywhere they don't want to go. Life. Yeah, it's called kidnapping.
Well, everybody knows it.
And that's how they get rid of all these damn serial killers before they kill people sometimes. Because they do that shit. They'll capture somebody or try to fucking move them somewhere, but then the person gets away and boom, you got him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, like I said, he got out in 2004. He's, almost 60 years old at this point. So, he goes back to Glasgow, and he gets a job as a handyman at a church, St. Patrick's Church, under an assumed name, Pat McLaughlin. Because you could do that back then, I guess. Much easier. Because the thing about it was that under the name Peter Tobin, he was still on the sex offender registry, right? Yeah. So he's like, okay, I have to use another name. Now, here's the thing. Like, he did a thing where, because, just like in the U.S., if you're on the sex registry, you have to inform them when you move. Well, he moved without telling them. He didn't get in trouble for it until later, like after he had done a third murder, and they're like, oh, that bitch did that too, because they didn't find him. But he didn't move that far away. I think it was only like 12 miles or something, but like they didn't know where he'd gone. But he got in trouble for that, so there was a warrant out for his arrest for that too. So his third murder, the one that he got caught on, happened in 2006. And the victim was a 23-year-old woman named Angelika Kluk. She was from Poland. And she was a student. Now, she was living in England, like working, raising money for her student for her college program, and also like to send back to her family in Poland. And she was likewise living and working at St. Patrick's Church, the same place where Peter Tobin was working as handyman. She was kind of just doing cleaning and just various stuff. I think she was living in a house on the grounds and was like working there and getting a wage and like free room and board and stuff. So she was last seen alive in the company of Peter Tobin, who also worked there, on September 24th, 2006. And as I said, I believe Tobin was about 60 or almost 60 at this point. They think what happened was that he was somehow able to, she knew him because they both worked there, but he was able to lure her into this garage, which was like attached to the church, at which point he tied her up, beat the shit out of her, raped her, and stabbed her 16 times. And then he took her body and stuffed it in a crawl space, like under the floorboards near the confessional in the church.
Boy, I bet you that smelled good.
They found out later
Yeah.
that she had probably still been alive when he buried her under there.
He buried her under there? Or?
Like, kind of, it was kind of like, I've seen pictures of it. It's just kind of like, it was like this much room.
Yeah, okay.
Because there was an interview with the woman who, she was like the forensic investigator on the case, and she had to climb down there.
Yeah.
Like, next to the body and
So
like
she wasn't
do the
covered up in dirt.
Well, not really, but he covered her with like a tarp or something.
Okay.
Like underneath this. Like I said, it was only like this high, something like that.
So she was probably unconscious, but alive.
Yeah, but they think she was still alive, though. So, so she went missing, obviously, and everybody was, like, wondering where she was. They did end up finding her body on September 29th, and because Peter Tobin was the last person she'd been seen with, although everybody there knew him as Pat McLaughlin, because that's the name that he had taken the job under, they said, okay, well, we're looking for this guy, and they put his picture on TV. And so immediately a bunch of people were like, hey, that's not Pat McLaughlin, that's Peter fucking Tobin. Like former neighbors and stuff that knew who he was. So they called the cops after his picture was on TV.
Michelle's back from the gym. What's up, Michelle?
Well,
How'd it go?
Hey.
What you training for? Tell me what your routine is. Let me hear what you do.
But yeah, so he got arrested. He had run off to London. And that's where they found him. He had actually checked himself into a hospital, which was another thing that he would do a lot. Like, if he thought he was in trouble, he would check himself into a hospital, like, under an assumed name. He did that a lot, too. So he did it in this case also. He went to London. He checked into a hospital saying, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack or a stroke or something. And he went in under the name James Kelly. But they found his stupid ass anyway. So they arrested him for the murder. So they put him on trial in Edinburgh in 2007. Now, Tobin tried to argue, because what the fuck else are you going to argue? Because they had all this evidence. He tried to argue that he and Angelika had consensual sex, but someone else had come along and killed her.
Oh, yeah. It just happened to be, man. I got lucky and this other dude came when I left. He jumped right on it.
Yeah.
Just out of the fucking blue. I don't know who that dude was.
Can you? What are the odds?
Yeah.
I mean, you know?
Come on, I guess the smell attracted him.
I don't know.
Yeah, some shit like that.
So, yeah.
That's a likely story.
Yeah, the jury thought the same thing. They were like, no.
Yeah.
Nobody bought it.
Yeah.
So he was found guilty of raping and murdering Angelika Kluk and was sentenced to life. Now, note, and this is something I don't see brought up a lot, but I heard it brought up on a couple of different because I watched like a whole bunch of documentaries about this, and a lot of them had like different information, so I was trying to kind of note it all in here. At the trial, the murder trial, the victim being Angelika Kluk, the reverend of the church where they both worked and where her body was found, whose name was Father Nugent, no relation to Ted as far as I know, he said that he had engaged in what he implied was a consensual sexual affair, he called it an affair, with Angelika. Now, she was 23, he was 63.
Yeah.
Now,
very likely.
I think, in fact, I'm 99% sure he raped her.
Yeah.
I mean, he said on there, it's like, oh, I'm so ashamed, and it happened 3 or 4 times, and blah, de blah. Like, she was living in the house, like, on the church grounds or whatever, because she was working there. And because the thing is, after he said that, at the trial, like, a whole bunch of, like, other young women and girls came out and said, yeah, that motherfucker, like, sexually assaulted me or made sexually inappropriate comments or something like that. Like, all kind of people came out and said, yeah, he's been doing that for a long time. So I imagine, even though he didn't say it was consensual, but he implied, because he used the word affair as though it was both of their idea. You know what I mean? Which I kind of doubt. Because he didn't look like anything either. Like, he wasn't like a hot 63. You know what I'm saying? He looked like a 63-year-old man. So, not saying that that's necessarily the only factor. I'm just saying, I think he was full of shit. And the fact that he was saying he was ashamed of it, blah, de blah, I think it was not consensual. Especially after all those people came out later and said, yeah, that motherfucker. So, He resigned, as in he was probably forced to resign, and he said, I'm going to therapy for his alcoholism. So again, he blamed it all on alcoholism too, which again makes me suspect what he was up to. Interestingly, he was later found dead in his home, I believe in 2010, maybe from a heart attack, although they said he didn't have any prior health problems. I don't know if they're trying to, like, he unalived himself and they're trying to, like, you know, cover up for his dignity or whatever the fuck. I don't really know. They found him dead anyway. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing to add to this whole kind of shit. That it's like this poor girl, she comes from Poland and she's like, she's a student. She's trying to make some money, like, to send back to her family, like, for her college and stuff like that. And it's like, she gets fucking creeped on by this 63-year-old fucking rapist reverend. And then she gets fucking raped and murdered by this motherfucker. It's like, Christ. Should just stayed in Poland, I guess. It's like, come to Scotland and all this horrible shit happens. You know, that's from Scotland's lovely. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. So it's like she just had really, really bad luck.
Guitar Girl's back from Norway.
Hey, what's up?
Guitar Girl?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Riding around on her boats.
Riding around on her boats.
Yeah, with the guitar.
Yeah. So, because of this murder, they were kind of like, okay, well, when they went back through his history and all the other shit that he had done, they're like, okay, we need to start looking into this dude's past because we know he's done some other shit. So they decided to search his former house in Bathgate in Scotland to see if there was anything, if he was connected to the disappearance of Vicky Hamilton, who I mentioned earlier. She was 15 years old. As I mentioned, she disappeared on February 10th, 1991. She was actually waiting for a bus to go home to Reading, and he either picked her up or just, like, forced her into the car or something like that. Now, not too long after her disappearance, as I mentioned, he moved from Bathgate to Margate, which is about 500 miles. And so they're thinking that, because here's the thing, when they searched the grounds of his house in Bathgate, they found her body. So they think what must have happened was that he killed her, kept her at his house in Bathgate somewhere, maybe buried in the yard, maybe in the freezer, who fucking knows? Nobody knows. And then a few weeks later, when he moved to Margate, he cut her in half, put her in, like, garbage bags, put her in the car, and then drove 500 fucking miles, and then buried her at the new house.
Huh.
Because that's where they found her.
Weird.
And that he killed her in Bathgate, but they, you know what I mean?
He moved her.
He moved her, they think.
He wanted to know where she was at all times, I guess, huh? Okay.
I mean, just, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
So that's where they found his fucking, that's where they found her. So, so yeah. So they're like, okay, well, that solves that mystery. So they found out that, so he had already been given a life sentence for killing Angelika Kluk. So then in late 2008, they put him on trial again for the murder of Vicky Hamilton. They brought up a bunch of evidence, like the houses. Obviously, the body was found in a house that he owned at that time. And they had, and this guy who was his neighbor when he lived there, he's been on a couple documentaries too. And he's like, the police came and they asked me if he'd done any gardening. And he's like, and I thought that was really funny because he's like, yeah, no, he never did anything like that. But then he thought, you know what, though? He's like, there was kind of a weird thing where I looked over there and he was, like, digging this really deep hole, like, in his yard. And he's like, and I went to, like, making a joke. It's like, oh, you digging to Australia, Pete? Or something like that. And he's like, no, I'm digging a sand pit for my kid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, like a sandbox type situation. And he's like, oh, that's nice or whatever. He's like, it's kind of deep though. But he's like, I didn't really think anything about it. But then, like, a day or two later, like, he looks back in the yard and it's all filled in again. And so he asked him, he's like, hey, Pete, what happened with that sand pit? He's like, oh, somebody from the council or whatever, like, came around and said, oh, I couldn't do that because it was unsafe or some shit. That's where the body was.
Yeah.
But it's like that dude had, like, fucking, he saw him digging the fucking hole for the body. I mean, the dude has, like, no fucking shame, this dude. And he's just like, oh yeah, I'm digging a sandbox for my kid. That's all. Crazy. So, but yeah, so they found other shit too. Like there was a knife that they found in his house that had his DNA and fingerprints on it. And they actually found Vicky Hamilton's purse. I read that it had his son's DNA on it. Like he had given it to his baby son to play with after he killed her or something, which is fucked up. And they also found sheet, the plastic sheeting that he had wrapped the body in that had fingerprints on it and shit like that. So he got convicted of that too and got another life sentence after that. And he actually tried to challenge the verdict, but he dropped the appeal in 2009. And so then they looked into the Dinah McNicol case. Like I said, she was 18 years old. He had picked her up hitchhiking, her and a male friend of hers, and the male friend had been dropped off, but then she subsequently disappeared. And he took money out of her account and shit like that. So they started looking into her disappearance as well, and then they searched his property again and found her body as well at the same house at Irvine Drive in Margate. So they found Dinah McNicol. So they basically put him on trial yet again for this other victim who had been killed in 1991. So for this one, at this point, they're like, look, motherfucker, because sometimes if you have a life sentence, it's after 21 years or something like that, you can apply for parole, even though he was 60 at this point, so it's not like he was really going to be getting out. But after the third trial, they're like, look, whole life tariff, meaning you're just going to die in prison, piss off, you know what I mean? They were sick of looking at his stupid ass, I guess. So like I said, they gave him that and they just threw his ass in prison. Now, after his first conviction for Angelika Kluk, again, they're like, look, this dude was too old to have started killing when he was in his 40s or this old, you know what I mean? So it's so he must have done some other shit. So let's start tracing his movements, through his whole entire life, and try to hook him up with, various unsolved disappearances and murders and see if we can link him to them because he must have done other ones. So this was called, as I mentioned before, Operation Anagram. So basically, it was led by a detective named Swindle, which I thought was kind of funny. Detective Superintendent Swindle, and I'm just like, no one trusts that dude with anything. But yeah, so they're just looking into his past and all this other kind of shit, and seeing if they could link him with some other stuff. Now, I will say that at one point, they had a bunch of them that they were looking at. At one point, they winnowed it down to another 9 that they thought were kind of likely, but sadly they were never able to gather enough evidence to definitively prove that he had done any of those, and they basically wrapped up Operation Anagram in 2011. But they're still pretty sure, because like I said, I'll talk about some of the ones that they think that he might have done. There are 2 that most detectives think, yeah, it's very, very likely that he did those. The other ones are more nebulous, but are still kind of, he can't be ruled out kind of thing. But the first 2 for sure is probably, he probably did do these. Because here's the thing, when they searched his house, they found a shit ton of women's jewelry, and they didn't know who it belonged to. And that's a very serial killer thing, to keep mementos of their victims and stuff. And it's we don't know, these could all belong to victims that we don't know who they are. So they thought that was very suspicious, which was another reason that they wanted to kind of look into all this stuff. So one of the cases that they think was probably him was a disappearance. As far as I know, as of this recording or as of this live stream, they have not found her body. So it was an 18-year-old named Louise Kay. Now, she disappeared from Beachy Head in Eastbourne in 1988. She had been out with friends, kind of partying and stuff, and then she's like, oh, I'm going to go sleep in my car at Beachy Head, which she had done, several times before. Nobody really thought anything about it. But nobody ever saw her or her car ever again. She actually had a gold Ford Fiesta that had one white door on it. Very distinctive, and nobody saw it again after that. Now, because in the investigation they found out that Peter Tobin had been working in Eastbourne at the time that she vanished. Also, not too long after she disappeared, he was selling a small hand-painted car, which might have been hers. Because he had worked in, auctions and cars and stuff like that, so nobody thought of anything about it, I guess. So it's possible that he could have repainted her car and was trying to sell it to someone else. And most notably, Louise had told friends that she had met a Scottish man not too long before she disappeared, and that he had given her money for gas. So she did seemingly know him. I mean, the Scottish man, that could be a lot of different things, but I'm pretty sure it was him. Thank you very much. Papa77 gave us a super chat. Great show. Here's a super chat just cause. Well, thank you very much. We always appreciate the super chats. So here's the thing. So Detective Superintendent Swindle, he said, I'm pretty sure that Tobin was the one responsible for killing Louise Kay. They don't know where her body is. They have not found it. And here's the thing, like, he owned some property in Eastbourne, and they searched some of the properties, but he had a property on Windlesham Road in Brighton, and they have not searched that for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why they haven't searched that. So some people are speculating that if she's anywhere, she might actually be buried at that property, but like I said, for whatever reason, they haven't searched that property. They've searched like a bunch of his other ones, but not that one, and I don't know why. But yeah. The other murder that they're pretty sure that he did was 22-year-old Jessie Earl, and this happened in 1980. And she also disappeared from Eastbourne, about the same area, and they actually found her skeletal remains in 1989 on Beachy Head, same place as Louise Kay had disappeared from. They found her, he had taken her bra off and like tied it, like her hands behind her back with it. And same thing, like, Peter Tobin was known to be living in this area at the time she was killed. They thought he was maybe working as a handyman at a local church in that area around that time. And she even told other people that she knew, much like Louise Kay had, that she would go out walking on Beachy Head. She did that a lot. And she's like, oh, I keep running into this weird middle-aged Scottish man that had been kind of bothering her. So there was that. And interestingly, after they found her body in 1989, Peter Tobin had moved with his wife and kid to Bathgate, Scotland, like almost like abruptly, you know what I mean? And that was a very common pattern with him. Like, after doing something or thinking he was going to get caught for something, like, he'd be like, oh man, we got to move, like, across the country or whatever. And he did that after they found Jessie Earl's body too. So they're pretty sure that he probably had something to do with that as well. So these two cases, those two, Louise Kay and Jessie Earl, they're like 95-ish% certain that he probably did those two, which would mean that's at least 5. Like I said, they could never prove it, and he's dead now, so you know what I mean, but they're pretty sure. Now, they investigated a few other murders that maybe were him, maybe not. The earliest one happened in 1969, and I think I wrote about this in one of my Faceless Villain books, actually, because I remember writing about this case. And this was a 13-year-old girl named April Fabb. She was actually bicycling in Norfolk, and she just disappeared. Now, this case, they've also tried to link with another famous serial killer, a Scottish serial killer who I mentioned earlier, who's Robert Black. But he, as far as I know, didn't go to Norfolk. It just, like, had never been there. Peter Tobin did holiday there on occasion, especially like over bank holidays and things like that. He would go to Norfolk, and he was kind of around. He didn't live there, but he would go there a lot. Now, the thing about it is that when April Fabb disappeared, it was like I think it was the Tuesday after the Easter Monday, because they get Easter Monday. We don't get that, but Easter Sunday, you get the Monday off. In the UK, I think she disappeared on the Tuesday after Easter, you know what I mean? Which would line up with him spending bank holidays in Norfolk, you know what I mean? Which he usually did. Now, this crime happened between the first and second Bible John murders. But the thing about it is that they haven't really found any evidence linking him to this crime. And April Fabb's body has not been found. So they're not really sure, like, what the, you know, how she was killed or anything like that, which obviously would go a long way toward maybe, you know, lining up with his MO or whatever. Another one that they kind of investigated was a 37-year-old woman named Dorothea Meechan. She was a nurse, and she actually disappeared on her way home from a party in 1971, and then they found her 6 weeks after she vanished. She'd been raped and strangled, and she was found nude, and she was partially burned, so they like set her on fire also. Yeah. And they found her in Renfrewshire, which is where Peter Tobin was from. Now, there was a dude that was convicted of this in 1971, but he's dead now. He died in 2008, but he, you know, the whole time it said, you know, I didn't do this, and he protested his innocence. So they kind of wondered if maybe Peter Tobin had been responsible for this one too, and like the wrong guy was convicted for it. They also found an unidentified woman who had been decapitated. She was killed in August of 1974, again in Norfolk. She's never been identified. They don't know who she is. But they did the sheet that she was wrapped in, like the plastic sheeting. It was found to be one of only 6 of these types of sheets that had been sold by this company in Scotland between these years. And this was in a period when Peter Tobin was living in this area. And he had also used plastic sheeting to wrap up his 3 known victims. So there was that, like a similar plastic sheeting. So there was that. And this woman had been beheaded, and Vicky Hamilton was dismembered. She was actually like cut in half. So there was that. And I think that the way that Dinah McNicol's legs were bound were the same way that this woman's was, this unidentified woman. They actually did exhume this woman's body to try and get DNA or try to get something like to identify her or identify who the killer was, but they were not able to, unfortunately. They think, they're not really sure, but they're speculating that this woman might have been a sex worker, because there was a sex worker in this area who was just known as the Duchess, who disappeared in 1974, and they think this might be her, but they're not entirely sure. So another one was a 21-year-old woman named Pamela Exall. Now, she vanished in August of 1974. She went like just out alone for a walk on a beach and never came home. Now, because this was also in Norfolk, and because, like I said, Peter Tobin like was known to take his holidays there, so they kind of wondered if maybe he had something to do with it. Again, they couldn't find a solid connection, and they're not really sure if I kind of feel like the Norfolk police have kind of said, no, we don't think Peter Tobin's involved with any of the cases here, but I don't know. I'm not privy to all the details they are, but I kind of feel like it's maybe a little premature to say that. Not real sure. So another one they investigated was a 17-year-old named Yvette Ann Watson. She went missing in 1979. She was actually in a mental health unit. She was being treated for depression and disappeared from there and has not been seen since. They have not found her body. This was also in Norfolk. Now, one of the things that's linking her to it, other than her being in Norfolk and him being in the area at this time, was that they found her diary, and in her diary, she mentioned somebody named Mr. Tobin. So they thought that was a little bit fishy. Now, in February of 1980, a 20-year-old named Elizabeth McCabe, they found her strangled in Templeton Woods in Dundee in Scotland. This was kind of one that they couldn't rule out. There was another young woman, an 18-year-old named Carol Lannon, and she was found dead a year prior to Elizabeth McCabe, like only 150 yards away. Now, these two, they're speculating that this could have been Peter Tobin, or it could have been another Scottish serial killer, Angus Sinclair. So they're kind of...
Motherfucker's name is Angus.
Yeah, Angus.
Yeah.
Like Angus beef.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're kind of speculating that maybe he killed both of these women as well. Maybe, maybe not. Another one was Patsy Morris, who was 14. She disappeared in June of 1980. She was at school and she was on her lunch break, and, you know, she just didn't return. And they later found her strangled in the bushes. Now, her dad has gone on record as saying she thinks Peter Tobin did it. But later on, like in 2008, they thought maybe it was her boyfriend, whose name was Levi Belfield. He allegedly confessed to her murder in 2008, but they're not entirely sure if that's the case or not. So it's still kind of open, you know what I mean? 1981, November 1981, they found a 18-year-old, is it 18 or 16? I can't really see, named Pamela Hasty. And they found her bludgeoned and strangled to death in Renfrewshire, again, the town in Scotland where he was born, Peter Tobin was born. She was strangled with a length of twine. After being hit on the head and dragged into the bushes, she had also been raped. Because this was where Peter Tobin was born, they were trying to find a connection there, but again, they couldn't find any solid evidence. Now, September 1983, they found a fully clothed body of an unidentified white woman. They found her in a ditch off the A1. This was in Cambridgeshire. And this woman had looked like she had died from blunt force trauma to the head. This woman was, and this is a woman that I wrote about in one of my books also, Janice Weston. She was 36 years old. She was actually quite a successful solicitor. She was from London. And she disappeared. I believe it was on her way to work, if I'm remembering, because like I said, I wrote about this case a long time ago. But yeah, they found her beaten to death, and she was had been coming from her office. And then they found her Alfa Romeo 4 days after that with blood in it. So again, I'm not sure if I'm all Peter Tobin for this one, because it doesn't seem quite like his MO. But it's a possibility. It was another one they looked at because they still don't know who killed her. That was a weird-ass case, by the way. I wrote about that one, too. Nicola Payne, who was 18, she disappeared December 14th, 1981, while walking to her parents' house. That was in Coventry. And this was around the time that Peter Tobin was hiding in Coventry. So they think that maybe he had something to do with that. Now, they did... So, like I said, I kind of feel like this is maybe one that can't be ruled out, although some people think maybe not. But I think it's only the Coventry connection because he was there at the time. Because, you know, here's the thing. When somebody disappears and there's a serial killer living in the area at the time, it's just... I mean, obviously you're going to have to investigate that because there's not that many serial killers, thankfully. So it's just like having somebody disappear or turn up murdered in town, you can't figure out who it is. It's like, I kind of feel like you have to look into that possibility. There was also a 15-year-old girl named Helen Gorey. She left her house in July of 1992, went to meet a man just called John, and they later found her murdered in Horndean. She'd been strangled and smothered. So this is another one that they don't think Peter Tobin can be ruled out of it. A man was put in jail for her murder in 1999 after they found his business card in her house, but the conviction was overturned in 2003 because there wasn't enough evidence. So after they acquitted him, they're like, okay, well, maybe Peter Tobin did that one too. Then there was Jennifer Keeley, who was 35. They think she had some kind of mental health problems. She might have been homeless at the time that she was murdered. She was stabbed 16 times, and her body was set on fire. They found her in a beach shelter in Eastbourne in 2005. Peter Tobin lived there at that time, too. However, they do have hospital records showing that he was in a hospital in Paisley, Scotland, before the murder, although he got out the same day as she was murdered. So they're like...
Unlikely.
Yeah, so they're like, maybe, but it would have been like a close shave, you know what I mean? Because he just got out of the hospital like the same day that she was found
Did he
dead.
set any of them on fire?
There was one previous one that they were looking at. Like, the 3 that they know of, he didn't.
Right.
But one of the other ones they were looking at, the body was set on fire, yeah.
Doesn't really sound like his M.O.
Not really.
She's homeless?
They thought she was. They thought she was. They weren't really sure because they couldn't find an address on her. So before we wrap up, let's take a little bit look at why they thought, because as part of Operation Anagram, they also looked into him as possibly being the man behind the Bible John killings, which took place in the late 1960s in Glasgow. And Bible John has still not been identified. They don't know who this motherfucker is. We did a show about Bible John like quite a long time ago, but if you don't remember, there was actually 3 victims: Patricia Docker, who was 25, Jemima McDonald, who was 32, and Helen Puttock, who was 29. All 3 of the victims had been picked up from the Barrowlands Ballroom in Glasgow, like a nightclub, where Peter Tobin was known to frequent because he was seen there on multiple occasions, and he actually met his first wife there, Margaret, when she was 17. So he was there at the time that this was going on, which is another reason. There was another reason, too, is that, if you remember, the Bible John murders, he seemed really infuriated / disgusted by women's periods. Because at least one of the victims, I can't remember if it was 2 of them, might have been 2 of them, like, he left they were all on their periods. And at least one of them, like, he left their bloody, like, maxi pad, like, under their arm, like, when he dumped the body.
Yeah.
And he was, so they thought that he was, like, grossed out or by that, or had some kind of weird fetish about it or something like that. And they said that Peter Tobin was also infuriated by women's periods.
Those
Weirdly.
periods.
I know, it's like, what? I don't understand, like, why. I know a lot of dudes are grossed out by that, but it's just like, it's not like we can do anything.
You get married to a woman, sometimes they say that. No. My first wife and some of my ex-girlfriends, when they were on the period, that's when they said that sex was felt the best, because it was kind of like alleviates from the pain.
I never found that to be the case.
I had 2 of them that were like that, at least.
Yeah, I've heard that before, like, from other girls. I've never been like that. I mean, thank God. I'm postmenopausal. Like, I don't want to have to deal with that shit anymore. Because I had really, really bad ones, like, my whole life. So, whenever...
We were on hormonal birth control most of the time. We were together.
Yeah.
It wasn't hormonal, was it? It was another kind of...
Sometimes it was, but then, like, I was only on that for a few years. Because I'd been off it for several years, and then I just went back on off and on. But yeah, I always felt too crappy. Like, I felt really crappy. It's just like I was in so much pain I couldn't even stand upright.
2 come to mind. One of them, my first wife. That's when she's like, "Okay, help me with this," type of deal. I was like, "All right." You know.
I've heard that before. Like, I've never experienced that. I always felt too shitty.
She said it would just fucking. What was that? Did the cat do something?
I guess.
And fucking.
I don't know. I gotta pee though.
I'm gonna go. Okay.
So
you just leave me sitting here.
No, I
talking
really
about
gotta pee.
Okay.
I'll be back in a second.
All right.
I just really have to pee. I'm talking about.
Yeah. My first wife was just like, "God, this is killing me. You have to help me out." I said, "All right, I got you. And she said that it fucking made it feel better. I don't know. I don't. I'm not a woman, so I don't know exactly what it feels like. So you'll see what people are talking about in the comment section. They're talking about lo mein noodles. Now, earlier on, I think it was Tammy, was talking about cardio. Cardio is actually better when you're younger. Younger people do well with cardio because their hormonal profile allows them to fucking respond well to that. When you get older, actually, the weight training is kind of. Let me go see what they did.
Yeah, because
it's not like they pushed a bowl.
Yeah, they probably.
Yeah, it's like
little kid. He's always knocking shit over. They're always knocking shit over. But yeah, I don't like I said, I've known some chicks that felt like that, but it's like I always felt so shitty. I was just like, no, all I want to do is curl up in a ball and cry. Thank you. You know what I mean? Sex was the last thing on my mind. I couldn't even stand upright because the pain was so bad. And it's like there are other shit too. It's like you're just. everything was bloated. Like, my hands were bloated, my feet were bloated, like, everything was bloated. Like, I felt like the Michelin Man. I felt nauseated, like, just pain everywhere, legs, arms, everywhere. You know, just real bad stomach problems, you know what I mean? Like, just grossness, and it's just like, I didn't want to, I didn't want to get involved in that, like I said, I just wanted to fucking cry, mostly. I'm just really glad I don't fucking have to go through that anymore. It was so bad. But yeah, so yeah. But yeah, I don't really know, like, what, but they think that Peter Tobin had the same issue with women on their periods as Bible John did, which that and the Barrowlands Ballroom thing, because they know that he was at the Barrowlands Ballroom at around the same time as Bible John was. So that obviously, like, you know, twigged their radar, because they're like, oh, well, he's a serial killer. That dude was a serial killer. Let's, like, look at this. So, the thing about it, though, is that when they looked more into his past, it seems like for the second two Bible John murders, because there are three, for the second two, he was in Brighton. And they know he was because there was like a marriage certificate and there was all this other stuff. Now, it's possible that he could have driven from Brighton, like, all the way back to Glasgow, like, without his new wife knowing about it. But it seems a little unlikely. You know what I mean? He was in Glasgow, I believe, during the first murder. But the second two, they're pretty sure he was in Brighton at that point, which, like I said, is quite a distance. So, so the thing about it, too, is that they did have some... Another thing, too, was that he didn't have red hair. Because that was a big thing that, like, of everybody that was, like, talking about Bible John that saw him, they said he had red hair. He was a ginger. And, you know, obviously Peter Tobin was not. Now, they did have some limited DNA evidence. I believe they had some, like, semen from Helen Puttock's tights that was still viable. And they also had some bite marks. So they compared the partial DNA profile to Peter Tobin's DNA and also the bite marks to his dental records. And it was not a match. So they have pretty much ruled him out as Bible John at this point. Like I said, it does seem weird that he was at the Barrowlands at the same time that this was going on. And it does seem weird that he had the thing about the periods, just like Bible John did. So it's still a possibility, I guess. But it would seem like him not being in the area for two of the murders, even though he could have driven back. I'm not saying that. But it's unlikely, is what I'm saying. So I don't know. So
now, Guitar Girl was saying, it sure is strange that all this shit's happening around places where you are. Well, Scotland isn't Norway. You know the whole UK area has a very high population density. It's similar to the American New England area. So yeah, very easily you could have murders in one area in the same time, same place. You know, it happens. There's enough people there. Statistics, you know. Like, there was shit that probably could have happened around here. You know, but we don't know about it.
True.
Wonder how many murders happened in this area over time.
I mean, you could look it up.
I could look it up. We just never see it.
I mean, I never looked it up, but
yeah, it would. If it doesn't make national news, we don't hear about it.
I mean, like I said, I know about a lot of murders because I write about them. So it's like, that's my whole thing, is like looking through each city's...
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not just... I'm doing unsolved murders, so I don't look at all the murders. I'm just looking at the ones that they don't know who did it.
Recently, up the street, two families went to war with each other and started shooting at each other, and some people were killed. The cops showed up.
Yeah. That was like... That's probably
like...
miles
from here.
Yeah, it's not like right on top of us. That was like a few miles away.
One family was accusing the other family of being pedos, that they were doing stuff to kids, and the shit went on for a long time. Eventually, gunplay came into effect. AR-15s and stuff.
Yeah, Phantom said, did Peter Tobin actually attend the church he discarded the body in? I don't know if he attended it, but he worked there. So, she worked there too, and like lived on the grounds. So, I don't know if he went to the church or not. These people going to church, it doesn't make any difference. If you're a shitty person, you're a shitty person. Like, because I know all these people are like, oh, he went to church. He must have been a good person.
No, that's where a lot of shitty people are.
That's where a lot of the shitty people are.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to make other people think they're not shitty.
Yeah.
So. I don't trust them.
Church is the last stop for fucking hookers and porn stars.
I don't trust them.
If you have some really famous porn stars and fucking high-end hookers that regret what they did, they're all married to dudes that run churches. That's some weird shit. If you're a fucking used up porn star, still look good. Even if you were being pimped out, you're gonna have a big career in the church. You can go there and talk about how evil porn was and how you got abused. You're saved now, and you're helping your husband run the church.
I mean, you got to get on.
And you still got those fucking implants, and you still got those lips, and you still.
It's a whole fucking Christian grift circuit, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
They got their whole own media and everything.
They got their own media and shit.
And there's a whole, if you're like a reformed sinner, ooh, they love that shit.
They love that shit. If you're retired,
you can make all kind of money.
If you're a retired sex worker and you're still hot, you will go high in the American church.
Write some books.
Yeah.
Go on the lecture tour.
Yeah.
Around all the churches and stuff. They love that shit. Get your own TV show.
Wear real tight outfits and fucking go up there and sing some songs with your husband and shit. And fucking shake it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
The American churches are awesome. Because it's obviously entertainment. I think it's honest.
I don't know.
I think it's not. No, I look at it and I know exactly what it is.
Well, I do too.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of people don't. Because, like I said, some people still think that, that's a good person. They go to church and blah, blah, blah. Well, shit, man. I see you. Okay, what's that other true crime show that I watch that's all like small towns?
Yeah.
It was called like Hometown Homicide or something like that. And it's all like super small towns, usually in the South or the Midwest. And some horrible fucking murder happens there.
Yes.
And before they talk about the murder, every single person there says the exact same thing. This is a town, nothing like this ever happens in this town. Everyone's good, church-going, God-fearing people, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of like...
That's where it happens.
Yeah. It's like shit like this happens everywhere. Like, just because people go to church, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
If you're a shitty person, you're a shitty person in church. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like... And like I said, I trust those people less.
Churches are filled with shitty people.
I trust those people less because they're obviously trying to virtue signal and show people, look what a good person I am. If you were a good person, everyone would just know you're a good person. You don't have to put a facade on that you're a good person by showing up at church and shit.
I was around that scene as a little kid, family members and shit, friends of the family. Church was just a way to get laid.
I mean, pretty much.
Even back then, everybody knew it was just a way to get laid. It was a social club.
Yeah.
So they're partying. Just they're doing it their own way. Having summer school and shit. I had fun. Vacation Bible camp. I used to go. But it was awesome. We'd make out with girls and fucking they had Easter egg hunts and shit and fucking it was fucking wild, you know what I mean? It was a makeout session. Slumber party. That's all it was.
Yeah, pretty
They
much.
knew what it was. And your parents would send you there for 2 or 3 days so they could fucking go to Vegas or some shit like that. You know?
Yeah, CB said the churches all over the world say stand up for evil, then they go and fuck kids. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why I don't trust those motherfuckers as far as I can throw them.
I remember being at vacation Bible camp and seeing the fucking counselors just fucking making out. You knew that they were fucking slamming when the kids weren't looking. They were in there making out in the bus and shit. The parked bus. It was kind of like, and then they'd play guitar. To me, it was obvious what it was, even from a little kid. But I didn't mind it. I had an okay experience. Nobody ever bothered me.
Well, I think it was a lot more chill back then. It's just kind of like
70s.
In the 80s, it started getting a lot more scary, like evangelical crap taking over, and
In the 70s, man, it had a hippie vibe.
that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not really like that anymore.
Yeah.
So, everything was kind of more chill back then.
Yeah.
In some ways. In some ways, it wasn't.
I got the feeling that the counselors were all about free love and shit.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's what, yeah.
But
Which some people are like, oh, never. You don't know the fucking American church in the 1800s. A lot of the fucking Southern Christian churches were free love cults. That was part of the thing.
well, a lot of the hippies got into
Yeah.
the Jesus thing later on.
Yeah.
Jesus freaks and
Yeah, but that was happening.
ended up in those cults.
That
and
was
stuff.
happening in the Victorian era
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I never went to any churchy kind of shit, so don't have any interest in it. And like I said, my family was not super religious, which I'm always thankful for. because it's just not really something I want to be involved in any capacity.
My family wasn't either, though. It was just part. It was just part of the culture, and it was a way of fucking here. They'll babysit the kids. You know what I mean? It just like what. It was things that families did. It was like traditions. You know.
Yeah, well, like I said, we didn't do any of that kind of stuff. Like I said, the only time I ever went to church as a kid was when I was staying with my aunt. And
we went to church when people died. That's
that was the only time.
Yeah,
like you'd go to a funeral,
and then you'd go to fucking vacation Bible camp and shit, because your parents wanted to go to fucking Vegas, so they wanted a fucking weekend alone. You're gonna go to Bible camp.
Well, like I said, we during the summer we just stayed with my grandma.
Okay. Yeah.
We just stayed at my grandma's house.
No, they'd send all the kids on my block would go. Jimmy and Mike would go.
So we just stayed with my grandma,
yeah.
which was
our family
a lot better than Bible.
Our families were coordinated. They're like, let's get rid of the kids. Like, yeah, okay. We're sending
yeah,
Bible
like
camp.
I said, I kind of feel like
they were partying.
Well, my parents worked. They couldn't really afford to go on vacation, so they just they were both working. So it's like we just stayed at grandma's house.
It was just for a weekend.
Yeah, no, we would stay at our grandma's like pretty much all summer, like during the day. Like then we'd go home at night. But yeah, so Peter Tobin, like I said, for all of this, he got a whole life tariff. He had a heart attack in 2012, and then in 2015, another inmate at the prison, who was a lot younger than he was. I think he was only in his 30s, and he was also a rapist. So but he slashed Peter Tobin with a razor or something. I'm not really sure where he got it from, like a razor blade. Like he left this big, huge scar like on his face, which I'm like, oh well, can't feel bad about that. But like I said, the dude was also a double rapist, so he's no fucking hero either. But I'm not gonna feel bad about fucking Peter Tobin getting slashed to the face. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, oh well, shit happens. So he actually, the guy that did it actually pleaded guilty. And he got, like, more time in prison. Because he was probably just like, man, fuck this guy. I'm already in prison, so I might as well fuck him up a little bit. But yeah, so then in 2016, he had a stroke. And then a few years after that, like, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so finally, he got taken to the hospital in 2022. And died in October of 2022 at 76 years old. Now, something that a lot of people kind of have a problem with is like, okay, so after he died, none of his family, which it seems like he didn't really talk to his family after he left home. So he wasn't in contact with them. So after he died, nobody came to claim his remains, which does not shock me in the slightest. So they cremated him and then scattered his ashes at sea. And some people were like, well, that seems like kind of too noble a death. It's like, why didn't you just flush him down the toilet?
That's funny.
Said a lot of people. Should have just flushed him down the toilet. I agree. They probably should. I mean, like I said, he's dead. He's ashes. I don't really care what they do with him. But, yeah, it probably would have been cooler if they had, like, flushed him down the toilet. I kind of wish they had done that. And if they had, like, filmed it being, like, out of the Ziploc baggie, like, in the whoosh, you know what I mean? There he goes. That's all he deserves. But, yeah. So some people were mad that he got... Because they're like, man, that's like shit that like happens to honorable people. We didn't want him to have that.
American Military 100 saying that I'm looking way too much like Anton LaVey, and we need to do a show on him.
Didn't we do a show about Anton LaVey?
Some of our earliest shows were about Anton LaVey and Church of Satan. And it might have been episode 4 or 5.
Well, no, I know we did one on Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure we did one on Anton LaVey too.
I think so.
I thought.
Yeah, I think we did.
Phantom says, does Dennis Rader think Peter Tobin has sexual problems?
Yeah.
He very clearly has sexual problems.
Yeah, well, he wasn't very good for the community. He only cared about himself. So he didn't do any time. He didn't go to church.
Yeah, just like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
He didn't monitor anyone's grass length.
Yeah, never cared about the height of people's grass.
Or called animal control on anyone's dogs.
Right, yeah.
Like old
sticklers.
Dennis.
He was a stickler. Yeah.
That's what I mean. He's one of those motherfuckers, BTK is.
Yeah.
That it's just like, it's bad enough that he's a serial killer, but then he has to be like this sanctimonious prick on top of it. It just makes me want to like punch him in the dick repeatedly. So.
Yeah. See, I was doing good for the community, making sure everybody's grass was cut.
Yeah. And he really did seem to believe that. Like,
that
he was a good person.
Yeah.
Because he was real good at compartmentalizing, or cubing. That's what he called it.
Yeah.
Cubing.
But also, he saw girls that he was women that he was attractive to, and wanted to fucking rape and kill, and would started to pester them about the length of their grass and their dogs, anything to talk to her,
Yeah.
to him. And that one hottie fucking had to fucking call the state on him. Remember?
That's right.
Said, this guy keeps bothering me.
He's harassed me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. That's really
Probably saved her life.
Oh, I bet.
Because had she not said anything, he
Yeah,
eventually would have fucking got her.
Yeah, if some creepo is doing that, like, report it. They might not do anything, but it's like, at least you got the shit on record, you know what I mean? Don't let shit escalate.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know if that's fucking Dennis Rader. Yeah, he might just be some harmless, creepy weirdo, but it's like, you don't know that. I feel like you should treat everybody that acts like that as though they're a fucking serial killer. Because they very well may be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might be saving your own ass. But, you know. Alright, so I guess, what time is it? It's almost 10 o'clock. Alright, so at least I got through the story. I was worried about it because this was another one. This always happens whenever I do a show about a serial killer. It's just always kind of like, I get all into it and I go down all this rabbit holes and like I watch a million documentaries and like read all these different, sometimes I read like whole books about it and stuff like that. And then like I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, that's interesting. And like, and I just write everything down and then the notes are like fucking 5 hours long. So I'm always kind of worried that I'm not going to get through all of it. So I'm just glad I got through all of it. That's all I'm saying. Because I was worried at first because I went through it earlier today. I was like, can I take any of this out? And I was like, I don't think I can. It's like, oh, this is so good. So I don't know. But so I kind of got through all of it. So I'm proud of myself. So yeah, hopefully I did the subject proud because this one by a small margin. I think Trail of Tears was the next one. And that was, I think it was like 36% to this one's like 42% or something like that. But yeah, this, again, an interesting topic. So hopefully you guys found it as interesting as well. Gallant Fox says, want to go to Circle K?
Nah. You want to go to Circle K?
No, I'm hungry though. I'm starving.
I got stuff down there. I got kielbasa's down there.
Yeah, because man, all I've eaten today is one hot dog.
Yeah, I didn't eat much either. Ate some cereal.
Oh, see, I didn't even eat it. I didn't have any of that. Yeah. So it's like all I had was one
hot
dog, and that was a long time ago.
We can go to Circle K.
So I'm starving.
We can go to Circle K.
We don't have to. I'd rather not leave the house, honestly.
Then I'd rather not fucking cook, though.
Oh, okay. Well,
you know what I mean?
All right, so I guess we'll go down there.
Yeah.
I guess we'll go down there.
We'll see. Okay, yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up for this evening. So hopefully you guys can join us again on Friday night for our sidetrack show, which is always super fun. Thanks for hanging out with us this evening. Thank you for your super chats, and we will see you guys again on Friday night. Good